Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Do We Know Them, episode 206, post-holiday edition, but I decided, one last sweater. Couldn't hurt.
I didn't have one last sweater.
It's all right. I honestly had a few that I didn't use, and I felt like just wasteful. And then this one has Debbie cakes on it. Wait, are these Debbie cakes? The Christmas ones.
I can't see.
The little Christmas tree ones?
The little Christmas trees? You told me I looked like a Debbie cake when I was wearing my other one.
I forget you can't see me sometimes.
Yeah, I can see like your head.
Also, guys, I got real extensions. Surprise. I
Show
went
them
from
off.
like, I don't really want them to be long. And then I'm like, 22 inches, please. Thank you.
22
so,
inches?
you know, yeah, well, I got them, like some of them were 24 and some were 22 and she cut it all. I don't know, but they're very, very long. I feel like a mermaid.
Give him a good tousle.
Do they even move? I don't know. It's so heavy.
Yeah, now, like, what are you have so much maintenance, I feel like now.
No, I mean, honestly, I don't really do all the stuff you're supposed to, so it's pretty easy for me.
Does Amelie pull on them?
Yeah, of course.
I just picture her, like, yanking one out.
Literally, yeah. Speaking of Amelie, she had her first day at an official daycare, like a school, like a place. I mean, it's not a school, but it's a daycare that's like, it's like a school, basically.
It's a more formal setting than before.
Yeah, she was in a home daycare before. We wanted her in a more of a school setting, and I was so nervous. I was like, how's she going to do? Because also, I don't think I've told you this. She has been 2 days, 48 hours without sucking on these tetas. Yep.
Congratulations.
It's so bittersweet because obviously I feel like so much sadness and stuff, but low-key I'm just like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I literally have my tits back. Like, we're in business,
sadness?
baby.
I feel like everyone is usually, like, ready for that to end immediately.
It's very complicated. It was a very, very special bond. And I brought comfort to her and she brought comfort to me too. And it's hard because like at sleeping time, like she can't find that comfort. Like she doesn't have any other way to self-soothe. So she just like wakes up pissed. And the way I got her to stop, by the way, because she is 3 now. Yeah. Extended breastfeeding period. And it's not weird. Don't be weird in the comments. But the way I got her to stop was there's these little sticks that are called sucker busters on Amazon, and they smell like shit, and it's like organic stuff like neem oil and stuff, whatever. I was just putting those on my boobs and she was like, ew, what the fuck is that? And I told her my boobs were getting old and sad, and she was like, oh, okay. And then she was sad about it, but she never tried to get it again.
Like it's just a natural thing that happens.
Yeah, but I'm free, guys. I am no longer a breastfeeding mother. It's an emotional time. But anyway, all of that to say, she went to daycare, a full day of daycare, okay? Morning to like afternoon, like a regular school day for kids. And I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be horrible. She's gonna be so sad. All of this. She did great, and she napped there. Literally knocked the fuck out.
That's amazing. Like, well, this is great.
Yeah, literally,
like,
she doesn't do that here. So I don't know. I was just like, okay, perfect. I'll bring her back every day. Thank you.
Well, next thing you know, we're going to be able to go on vacations.
No, literally, my first thought was like, okay,
Like, where
so
can I go?
grandma's house is looking kind of slay right now.
Literally.
What's going on? Like, come on. And then once that happens, I mean, the world is my oyster. So yeah. We're one step closer to freedom.
Goodbye.
But anyway, just wanted to share that journey with you guys. Some of you guys knew I was still breastfeeding, but I don't really talk about it that much. And yeah, I'm done.
Congratulations.
Cheers. Cheers to 3 years.
Cheers.
My titties did their job and they did it well, and they'll forever pay the price. Anyway, we have a one topic episode for you, and full disclosure, we are filming this the day before Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot happening right now. My room looks like a fucking bomb went off. There's just wrapping paper everywhere. I'm very stressed, but also so excited for the holidays. And so it's kind of an interesting, like we're pre-filming. So it's always interesting when we do that because it's like,
oh, fuck. There's going to be updates.
no, please.
You know
Wait,
there
you
is.
think so? This is a lawsuit.
I mean,
how quickly are there updates?
Yeah, but like I even just got those 2 updates sent to me that I feel like are relevant.
Okay, well, you're going to hear Lily's voice at some point in this episode, just so you know.
Like, if you don't and it's the AI person, it's only because I'm tired.
Yeah, literally. If you hear the AI person, it's because we're done with life. So anyway, we're actually going to be covering an update to something that we've already covered.
Yeah, I was going to say we're revisiting actually one of our like best performing episodes of
Really?
the year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, so that episode specifically was the drama surrounding the It Ends With Us movie, and specifically around the alleged feud between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And now we are revisiting that topic because Blake Lively is suing Justin Baldoni and his production company and his business partner and his publicists, and there's a lot of people on there.
And honestly, when I first saw this, I didn't even really know how to feel. I wasn't shocked by any means, but I was just kind of like, oh shit, what is this about? And then the more I read it, I was like, oh shit. Like it was a lot worse than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie. Like I thought it was almost going to be like a fluff thing maybe, or like it was just going to be because obviously Blake had to deal with a lot of bad press because of that movie. I was like, it has to do with something in that realm. No. We're dealing with, I mean, yes, we're dealing with that, but we're also dealing with like sexual harassment and a lot of crazy shit. So
I do feel like it's a kind of nuanced conversation because there's a lot of different aspects to this. And in my opinion, they're kind of not all related aspects, but they're being very much lumped in to be like just one lawsuit and like who's right, who's wrong. And we're going to dive into the lawsuit and go through like specifics and stuff and all the claims. But let's refresh your memory, go back in time. And the episode that we had done, we basically were talking about how Justin Baldoni had been unfollowed by several of the actors in the film. And that I think is what first started the like buzz around like something's going on between Justin and the rest of the cast. And then the press tour started, which just blew
was a
up.
disaster.
Yeah. And that's what we react to in most of that episode is interview clips of both of them. I think that is what created the biggest divide between like the two camps. It's like, well, honestly, most people were in Justin's camp. And it was all coming down to how they promoted the movie. Because if you're unfamiliar, It Ends With Us is about domestic violence and how the two of them chose to market the movie. Well, I don't know. I won't even say they chose, but like how they ended up marketing the movie. There was a very, very stark difference. Justin, anytime he got asked about anything, he would bring the conversation almost immediately back to domestic violence, to victims, and like really spoke from this like empathetic understanding, like trying to break down all of the stigmas against it and be the perfect male ally for women.
It's very easy to say, especially for us men, is when we maybe talk to somebody who's in this situation, or we read a book, or we hear a news story, the question that's always asked is, why did she stay? And that's the wrong question.
Yeah.
What we need to be asking ourselves is, why do men harm?
I cared so deeply about the women and the people that go through this every day, and I wanted to make sure I did their story justice. I wanted it to be truthful.
If a Lily Bloom in real life can sit in this theater and maybe make a different choice for herself than was made for her, maybe she sees herself on that screen and she leaves the theater and chooses something different for herself, that's why I made the movie.
Challenge, right? Because what is a typical abuser or a typical victim? I think that there is no typical anything. I think that unhealthy relationships are on a spectrum, and this was a really important.
As a man, I'm always going to come with my own biases. And it's one of the reasons I was afraid to direct this movie, let alone act in it. And I wanted to make sure this film always had a female gaze.
This had to have a female point of view. This had to have a female gaze.
Of course.
And I didn't ever want my biases as a man to infiltrate or hurt the project in any way. Because the one thing that I don't know is what it's like to have the experience of a woman.
I'm a man. And this is a story that is told through the lens of a woman. And especially,
You know, we partnered with our dear friends at No More. It was the only way that I could direct this movie is if I had a group of women specifically behind me who are specialists in this space. And from the very beginning, we worked very hard to create a very truthful and honest story that could reflect the reality of what millions and millions of people go through every day. There's nothing that I could ever do, no matter how many women are in my life and how many women I talk to, I could never embody that. So trusting the women around me and trusting Blake in that way to just guide me was like such a gift.
Assignment was to tell a truthful story that millions and millions of women who are in this situation every single day can look at and see themselves in.
That's what drives all of this. And so at the end of the day, it was because I cared.
Pretty much how his entire career has been. I feel like that is very much the persona that he has painted for himself. And he has the podcast Man Enough, where he's like breaking down toxic masculinity. Everything that he lives and breathes career-wise has been like, I'm here for women.
Which is why this is even crazier.
Like, which we'll get to why that's insane later.
Yeah, like I think there's a literal quote in that last episode that we did on this where I said, like, if he's faking it, holy shit, he's doing a really good job.
There's a stark difference between how the two of them have handled it.
Watching Justin.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I
And
know.
again, even if he's faking it, he's doing it quite well, I must say. Because he's saying everything right. Usually people slip up, especially if it's over the course of years and years and years and you've worked with a lot of women. You know what I mean? Like there's just enough experiences to prove that you're not that way. Like I just think something would have happened along the way and it hadn't. So I was just like, if he's faking this, like, damn, he's been committed to that bit. And then now we're here and it's like, Whoa.
Even in that episode, I think I referenced like he, in terms of his relationships with like prior co-stars and stuff, he officiated Gina Rodriguez's wedding. So like, it's definitely like, I won't say we never like doubted it, because even in the episode, we were like trying to kind of question it, but we were also very much buying everything he was selling.
Yeah, but also at the same time, you're never going to catch me surprised that a man does some crazy shit.
Totally.
Because men do crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could say this shocks me more than it does, because it doesn't shock. Like, a man is a man is a man is a man is a man. Like, I'm literally just like, at the end of the fucking day, if it looks like one and talks like one, it's one.
Disappointed, not, or what is it, like,
Disappointed but not surprised, or something like that?
Yeah. We did speculate, like, well, maybe he did just put on this entire front, but also it was just so convincing because he really did know all of the right things to say.
Yeah, he practices. Yeah.
Oh, well, for sure, obviously. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, Blake, the biggest criticism I know that at least we had, and I think the majority of people had, was how it seemed like she was kind of a little dismissive / not taking the themes of the movie very seriously and just kind of like making it a little more shallow. I know the biggest thing was like everyone criticizing her for the grab your friends, grab your florals. That was like the tagline.
Hello, Blake Lively here. Colleen Hoover. And It Ends With Us is in theaters now. So grab your friends, wear your florals, and head out to see it.
Yeah.
I do think I
made
pointed
no
out
sense.
though that like I don't think she came up with that. That was clearly like a marketing push by Sony, who put out the movie. But at the same time, we watched a lot of interviews. I watched a ton that were not even included in the episode. And she did have a very different demeanor. It was such a stark difference. And that is why I think it got so much press. But then also apparently it got press because we'll get into it. There was a smear campaign against her.
Allegedly, but
I
seems like
do
it,
think
for
that
sure.
it is important, and right up front, because we are going to get into the sexual conduct and like harassment allegations and stuff that she has in the lawsuit. And I absolutely believe those. I think that Justin, that is disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
He should face accountability for all of those, no question. But I think it is separate that she did have some choices surrounding the promotional tour of this movie where her brands were involved. Like her alcohol brand sponsored the official after party, and they had
Right, I
like
remember that.
cocktails named after the characters, and there was like a cutesy cocktail named after the abuser in the movie. So it's like stuff like that has nothing to do with the smear campaign. That was like a choice that you approved.
I do question though if people hadn't already had it like up to here with Blake at that point, if that would have just gone under the radar, or if people would have still pointed out things like that, which I think is valid to question, because I think at one point it was just like you couldn't stop getting fed shit about Blake Lively.
For sure.
Like
I
it was
think
just everywhere.
Definitely people were going through stuff with a fine tooth comb and like trying to find stuff, but they did find stuff, and it was stuff that she said and that she did, that no one planted this stuff. She was choosing to make these decisions. And the brand ones are specifically what I wanted to bring up, because I know in regards to the actual like marketing of the movie, she claims in the lawsuit, she includes like a directive that they were given where it says that, we'll read the exact wording, but it's like veer away from talking about DV. But it also doesn't say don't talk about it. It doesn't say like you are prohibited. And also she was an executive producer on the movie. And I think that if she felt that that was something that was like important that they needed to be discussing, there probably could have been a little pushback there.
I do agree. I just also think that it is weird that they would even not want her to talk about that. I think that's a super weird. I mean, I'm not surprised.
It's not though,
but
when you consider one, that they want to make money, and two, that was exactly how like the book, remember the nail polish and the fucking coloring book and like stuff like that. So that checks out with like how the story in general has been marketed in the past.
What I do want to say though is that before we get into the actual lawsuit, which we are going to dissect, if you guys have no idea what is going on with the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively lawsuit, and there's more people mentioned, we're going to give you the important cliff notes and we're going to explain everything. But what I want to say before we do that is that I forever will stand by the claim that there is no perfect victim. And although I may not like things that Blake Lively has done, I mean, for instance, she has worked with and defended Woody Allen on numerous occasions. She still works with, I think, Balenciaga and like a bunch of things that like if she claimed to care about the things she claimed to care about, then she wouldn't do those things. That does not mean, because I think Becca was the one that pointed this out, that statistically as a woman, like the likelihood that she would experience something like this is high. The likelihood that this is true is very high. So I can't sit here and even pretend to doubt her because I don't like her demeanor or because she has worked with other abusers or because, you know, that doesn't check out for me. I think that all of those things can be true at once.
That's the thing. And why I brought it up, that for me, there's a big separation between a lot of the stuff that has been said in the past about her that we even specifically have said that has nothing to do, in my opinion, with the other allegations against Justin. I think that those also do overshadow the stuff of like her talking about how she like picked all the songs a bunch of times in the movie. Yes, clearly this is a far more egregious and important conversation to be having, that Justin was crossing lines left and right than her just making some vapid comments. But I think that it's not as black and white as like, oh, everything was a lie. Like, I think she really did receive valid criticism. Did a potential smear campaign maybe escalate the entire conversation around that and make it so it was having people go through and pick out things and be very nitpicky about things she said? Yes, but I do think she also made some tone-deaf choices.
I 100% agree. I'm sure that I could watch those interview clips again right now, knowing everything that I know. And even though understanding that she could maybe be bitter towards the movie as a whole because of the things that happened, that could very much be true. She was rude to interviewers. She did seem out of touch, you know, just in general. And it was off-putting to the average person. And I do think that to some capacity, I don't know if everything would have happened the same way had this not been happening behind the scenes, but I think she still would have gotten a lot of flack for it, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even just one of the biggest things that stuck out to me that I'm like, that has nothing to do with any of it, is the Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds' mom, like, promo
oh my God.
clip,
Not you.
Like, what the fuck
bringing
was
that back into my brain when I shoved it so far down.
It was so weird.
Bad.
Yep. You want to take a break from Blake? Sure.
Hello, Brandon.
No.
Well, it's not every day the mother-in-law of the leading lady gets to interview the love interest and the man trying to replace my sweet little gummy bear, Ryan. Let's dive in, shall we?
Should we not dive in?
I'm like, the movie was promoted like a rom-com and she had a hand in that. Whether she wants to claim that was all Sony or not, fine, but like she had a hand in it. Separately, I think we can also say that that sucks for her that she had to go through any of the stuff that Justin put her through and that he deserves to take accountability.
And so he shall. I mean, we'll do our part and, you know, go through this a little bit. So some of the people that you're going to need to know when we're talking about this lawsuit is Justin Baldoni, obviously, Blake Lively, we know them, Jennifer Abel, who is Justin's publicist, Melissa Nathan, who is a crisis PR that Justin hired, and then Jed Wallace, who's an independent contractor for Melissa, who's the crisis PR Justin hired.
Also named in the lawsuit is his business partner, Jamie Heath, who's also the co-host on his podcast, along with another co-host that is no longer a co-host, interestingly. Hey girlies, just wanted to add a little more context before we just dive in. So as I just mentioned, Jamie Heath, who is Justin's business partner / best friend / podcast co-host, he is apparently the president of Wayfarer Studios, but there is one other name that we will mention later, but we didn't upfront, and that is Steve Sarowitz. Apparently he is the founder and co-chairman of Paylocity, which I've actually never heard of, but I guess it's a leading payroll and human resources solutions provider. And he's a billionaire and also apparently owns one half of Wayfarer Studios with Justin Baldoni. So he definitely comes into play here as he is one of the biggest financiers of Wayfarer Studios. And you can even find a post from June 2022 on the Wayfarer Studios Instagram where it announces a $125 million investment to boost strategic growth and further the company's production of film, TV, documentary, podcasts, and new media projects. And one more interesting aspect about him is that he is also apparently of the Baha'i faith, which we do talk about later, because that also is an aspect that comes up in the court filing. Oh, and by the way, Jamie Heath is also of the Baha'i faith, but just keep that in mind, put a pin in that, and we'll revisit that later. I think that covers it for now, but I'll be back because, guys, holy shit, has this gotten messy, including like multiple other lawsuits, but more on that later. For now, back to us.
Wow, this is a lot of people. I actually, I had read this honestly with legal papers, and that's why we're going to try to make it, palatable for everyone to understand what's going on, because this is just a nightmare for my brain. Why do they write like this?
Well, so a lot of them also, it's that individuals are being sued, but then also the companies that they work for are being sued. So it's like a lot of different things, but it comes down to it's like 4 people.
And the complaint for damages are a lot. There is 10 total. It is for sexual harassment, retaliation, failure to investigate, prevent, and or remedy harassment, retaliation, again, I don't know how that works, aiding and abetting harassment and retaliation, breach of contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, false light invasion of privacy, and interference with prospective economic advantage.
So I did go through and explain some of this while we were filming, but not very well. And then I learned more since then. So to sum it up, she's basically asking for accountability for both what happened during production, but then also all of the aftermath and retaliation that happened as a result of her objecting to what happened during production. First up, we have sexual harassment, which addresses the inappropriate behavior directed at Blake on set, such as sexual comments, unsolicited physical contact, and forcing her into situations that violated her personal boundaries. This is all outlined in numerous examples where she talks about behavior from both Justin and Jamie Heath. Next, we have retaliation, which there's actually 2 retaliation claims, and both highlight kind of different aspects of the backlash that Blake alleges she received after voicing concerns. The first one is under the Fair Employment and Housing Act and covers retaliation specifically tied to her complaints about sexual harassment and misconduct. Basically, the laws that they're citing protect her right to report and oppose issues on set without fear of retaliation, which then she experienced. The second claim of retaliation, though, is under the California Labor Code and applies to whistleblower protection and ensures employees can report any legal or regulatory violations without fear of retaliation. So this one is more applying to her being retaliated against for reporting breaches of labor standards and workplace safety laws. Basically, one focuses on how she was targeted for raising personal concerns about harassment, while the other broadens the scope to include her whistleblowing on workplace-wide safety issues. By including both, she's showing the full extent of the retaliation she faced, whether it was to silence her or to preemptively discredit her if she was going to go public with any of it. Next, we have failure to investigate, prevent, and remedy harassment. Blake alleges that the producers in studio ignored multiple complaints of inappropriate conduct on set and also failed to implement standard workplace protections, which includes everything from COVID protocol, lack of intimacy coordinators, and everything that contributed to an unsafe work environment that were ignored when she raised concerns about them. Then we have aiding and abetting harassment and retaliation, and this is in regards to the smear campaign and targets Justin, Jamie, the PR team, all of which allegedly encouraged or directly contributed to the harassment and the retaliation that followed after she complained about it. Then we have breach of contract, where Blake claims that the agreements she signed were supposed to implement workplace safety, such as the use of intimacy coordinators and adherence to SAG-AFTRA rules for nude and intimate scenes, and that those were all blatantly violated. Then there's intentional infliction of emotional distress, which is pretty self-explanatory, but it involves how the behaviors on set, as well as the retaliation, were designed to humiliate and harm her emotionally. Then we have negligence, which pertains to the studio and how they failed to create a safe workplace by neglecting industry standard practices, which exposed her and others to unnecessary risks. Then we have false light invasion of privacy, which is definitely around the smear campaign and how they made efforts to misrepresent Blake's actions or portray her negatively to the public to damage her reputation and harm her public image. And then lastly, we have interference with prospective economic advantage, and that also has to do with the smear campaign and how it was meant to ruin her reputation, which obviously directly hurts career opportunities and makes people less willing to want to work with her or support her projects. And one more interesting aspect about all of this is that usually in Hollywood cases like this, it is filed in civil court and also usually would include like defamation claims or something like that. She does not include defamation claims because she actually focuses more on like broader workplace safety violations. And she didn't file this in civil court, so it's technically not a lawsuit yet, because Blake chose to file this with the California Civil Rights Department instead of going directly to civil court. Deadline actually specifies that, to be clear, Lively's sexual harassment and retaliation complaint to the Golden State Agency is not an actual lawsuit. However, in the setting stage, it is a prelude to one being filed soonish, we hear. And this is apparently because 4 of the claims, which are sexual harassment, the first retaliation claim, the failure to investigate, prevent, and remedy harassment, and the aiding and abetting harassment and retaliation claim, apparently all those require the Civil Rights Department to be involved, which makes it so she's actually not able to file this directly because she needs approval from the Civil Rights Department. So I guess the process is she puts this claim together, submits it to the Civil Rights Department, and then they issue what's called a right to sue letter. Once she gets that, which there has not been confirmation anywhere that that has been issued, but once she receives that, then she can file the lawsuit. If for some reason they didn't approve that, it would only be involving the remaining 6 claims she made.
So those that you just read off are the things that she is suing for that will more than likely actually be, like, she can get something out of?
Yes. That's going to determine who wins the lawsuit, is if she can prove these things. So then the rest of the stuff that is involved is much more contextual information to then support these claims. Like things he said, how he treated her on set, like the environment on set, stuff like that. It is less about like, that's illegal, I'm going to sue you for saying that. It's that he said that, and then that contributed to other things that she actually can't sue him for.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And just because things aren't illegal doesn't mean they're not wrong. So,
totally.
But yeah, that's helpful to point out. Okay, so jumping into the introduction, because it does kind of set everything up, it says, on January 4th, 2024, prior to resuming filming of It Ends With Us, following guild strikes, an all-hands meeting was convened to address the hostile work environment that had nearly derailed production of the film. Attendees of the meeting included Justin Baldoni, who's the co-chairman, you all know him, as well as a director, executive producer, and actor in the lead role of Ryle Kincaid, Jamie Heath, the chief executive officer of Wayfarer, a bunch of people, and Blake Lively was there as well. Miss Lively also had the agreed upon right to have a representative present. She chose her husband, given that the meeting was about repeated sexual harassment and other disturbing behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. As discussed in detail below, Miss Lively was forced to address concerns about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's misconduct with them directly, and began doing so months before filming began. The concerns she raised were not only for herself, but for other female cast and crew, some of who had also spoken up. The January 4th meeting occurred only after Wayfarer had rebuffed Miss Lively's efforts repeatedly. So some of the provisions that they wanted Justin to agree to, there's a bunch of them, but I'll just read some of them for context. No more showing nude videos or images of women, including producer's wife, to Blake Lively and or her employees. Already weird. Why do you have to specify that?
And also,
that's
who's
strange.
Producer in this situation?
I guess I don't know if that's referring to Justin Baldoni or Jamie Heath. She references them both a lot in terms of like the sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
It seems like they both acted very inappropriately, but regardless of who that is referring to, no more mention of Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath's previous pornography addiction or Blake Lively's lack of pornography consumption to Blake Lively or to other crew members. Why do we need, oh my God, I hate it here. Somebody actually emailed us. We've gotten a few emails about this in terms of like people wanting us to cover it. And someone pointed out that he has a whole podcast episode talking about his porn addiction. So yeah.
That's the thing. I almost think that he and his co-host probably and co-whatever, Jamie, that they talk about stuff like this and then kind of think that it's okay because it's like they're acknowledging their like shortcomings in the past, but it's like you're still making people uncomfortable now. Like
exactly.
And like also it doesn't sound like, why are you still showing naked picture? It's weird. Okay, continue.
There's a bunch more about sex, like no more descriptions of their own genitalia to Blake Lively, no more mention to Blake Lively or her employees of personal times that physical consent was not given in sexual acts as either the abuser or the abused. And that's horrible on its own, but it gets progressively weirder because it says no more mention by Mr. Baldoni of him speaking to Blake Lively's dead father. There's a whole saga here of Justin Baldoni allegedly claiming to speak to dead people.
What?
I would be lying if I said I understood it, but apparently he thinks he's Teresa Caputo, and I don't know what to feel. I'm telling you, there's so many weird parts to this lawsuit, but these are, imagine, they have to be the most pressing issues to bring it up at this meeting because this is such a big deal for her to sit there with her husband and be like, this is what we need to agree to in order for me to continue filming this movie that I'm contractually obligated to continue. And if this is what she's bringing to it, which allegedly it is, that is fucking insane. Like the fact that you need to tell them, like, can you stop playing Teresa Caputo maybe? Like you're super fucking weird.
That's weird. And I know, so the next one, it's no more pressing by Mr. Baldoni for BL to disclose her religious beliefs or unsolicited sharing of his. I know that let me look up what it's called. It's the Baha'i religion. Belief in one God, the unity of all people, and the essential worth of all religions. They also believe that the purpose of life is to serve others and that people should have equal opportunities. But I do know that that is something he's very vocal about. So that, again, is another thing that tracks that he is very passionate about his religion. And I wonder if that has something to do with the talking to the dead father, if there's some kind of like
Jesus, I don't know.
there. I don't know.
This next one says, if Blake Lively and or her infant is exposed to COVID again, Blake Lively must be provided with immediate notice as soon as Wayfarer or any other producers become aware of such exposure without her needing to uncover days later herself. So it seems like she was exposed to COVID. Her child was exposed to COVID. And during this movie, she was still breastfeeding. We're going to get into issues with that. And boy, do I have thoughts. It just seems like she was in a Nightmare Boys Club kind of vibe.
These are the kind of things, especially with like COVID protocols. That's like one of the biggest things for entertainment during that time was even for like smaller shoots for like YouTube stuff. I feel like I heard of people having to like go get tested. They need to get results, blah, blah, blah. And it was all like so strict that this sounds like they were just not doing that.
And then it moves on to the intimacy side of it. She wanted no more improvising of kissing. All intimate touch must be choreographed in advance with Blake Lively.
Also, you missed number 11 is an intimacy coordinator must be present at all times when Blake Lively is on set in scenes with Mr. Baldoni, which is interesting because that was one of the things that people were
He was interviewed about.
Yeah, that both of them were. And she got super weird about it.
Talking about how sometimes you were even the intimacy coordinator in some of those sexier scenes. Like we saw you.
That shouldn't be happening, by the way. I just want to be clear that you should not be the intimacy coordinator. You should definitely hire intimacy coordinators, which we did have. Thank goodness.
You were teaching Justin how to pull you in.
Where have you seen this?
That
I actually just saw it too. It was on Instagram yesterday, I think.
I mean, I think that romance is really important. You're supposed to, tell a story well and make people feel, but you're also supposed to do it in a way that is like safe and respectful for all. I guess that's the role of intimacy coordination. But when I think of my involvement in the film, I don't really see that as the thing that I did. I did probably everything else. You touched on everything else here and there, but yeah, we were really lucky I'm fortunate to be able to have had such a all-encompassing experience on this film, and Colleen too. I mean, she's such a great filmmaker. She was really able to separate herself as the author and sit in that edit room and go like, okay, I know that I wrote this in the book, but like, what if it happened this way instead? Because for the film, it's its own piece of art, and we're still capturing everything that's in the book, but it's just tweaking this or that. Like, so she really is just an incredible storyteller. So to be able to have been on this journey with you has been really, really great.
And when he gets talked about it, he brings up that they had a great intimacy coordinator. And that intimacy coordinator worked with Blake and their stunt coordinator. The other two were both women as well. And he let them really take the reins and like do everything.
Early on.
Doesn't seem like that was really the case.
And the mention of the improvised kissing, we're going to get into it. Allegedly, what he was doing was a lot of, oh, let's do this, and just like going for it. And maybe thinking he's being some sort of method actor, but it really creeped her out, which honestly, as a mother and wife, like I would understand that if you are going to do intimate scenes with another person, should be pretty fucking strict. You know what I mean? Especially if you're not like in an open marriage. You know what I mean? You're both married people. Let's make this as professional as possible.
That's the thing about like, people are always like, oh, movies, like it's all hot and heavy, blah, blah. You'll hear from most actors that it's not an enjoyable experience usually because it is very mechanical and it's like everything is choreographed. That's the whole point. Like, it's not just like, hey guys, go start hooking up and we'll tell you when to stop. Like, that's not how it is. They need to make sure that both people are comfortable with what's going on and everything is above board. And it doesn't sound like that's what was happening.
And I want to be clear, there's a lot more points, but we are going to get into all of this like pretty much in the lawsuit. So that's why I'm kind of breezing past this. But it talks about not entering, attempting to enter, interrupting, pressuring, or asking Blake Lively to enter her trailer or the makeup trailer by Mr. Heath or Mr. Baldoni while she is nude for any reason.
That's insane.
No more private multi-hour meetings in Blake Lively's trailer with Mr. Baldoni crying with no outside Blake Lively appointed representative to monitor. Oh my God, this next one. No more pressing by Mr. Baldoni to sage any of Blake Lively's employees. Sir, get the fuck away from me. The way I would have drop kicked him. Are you kidding?
It sounds like he would be weird to work with in general, but then when he is literally the
Sounds like a
owner
weird
of the
dude.
movie,
Yeah.
he's the head of the studio, like, yeah.
But yeah, from saging employees to barging into her trailer to pressuring her into improvising sex scenes, it seems like a lot went down in order for this list to even be created. But anyway, one of the things that this lawsuit is alleging is social manipulation, and they kind of touch on this at multiple points in the lawsuit, but this specific part says, what the public also did not know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan that Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Miss Lively's reputation. That plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfair's co-founder, co-chairman, and leading financier is multi-billionaire Steve Sarowitz, who divulged at the film's New York premiere on August 6, 2024, that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family. With that backing, Mr. Baldoni and his Wayfair associates embarked on a sophisticated press and digital plan in retaliation for Miss Lively exercising her legally protected right to speak up about their misconduct on the set, with the additional objective of intimidating her and anyone else from revealing in public what actually occurred. So what she alleges throughout this lawsuit is like, from the moment that I presented these provisions and started complaining and being like, hey, you're not going to be doing this shit, things got way, way, way worse.
Basically, they didn't just like not agree to them. Well, I'm sure that they claimed to agree to them, but they didn't just like not honor them. They were like, oh, we're not going to honor them and we're going to just fuck your life up. Also, I'm curious with stuff like this, though. It's like the Steve guy at the premiere said that. Like, to who?
Those are the things that have to get proven. And it is important, like, why you went through kind of what is an actual offense that she can probably prove, and then what's kind of just like her recollection. Or, I mean, I doubt that they would put something that explosive without having some sort of, I don't know, like a witness they can bring, because that's kind of insane. But it's not like they could subpoena that guy and he's gonna just be like, oh yeah, I said that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they could get what's it called when they record a deposition? Like they'll depose people and get everyone's stuff afterwards. But it is a lot of things that it's like, well, I'm gonna need to see proof of that because I believe you, but it's absurd.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Well, what it says here is specifically as their own words reveal. That's what it says on this next line.
And that has to do with the text messages and stuff that they...
Yeah, so I'm thinking that they have to have enough. And I mean, the text messages do look pretty bad. Are they revealing this level of bad? I mean, they fucking hate Blake Lively and they want bad things for her. Yeah, I think that's provable. Maybe they're using that to support statements that they don't have proof for. You know what I mean? And it all kind of ties together. I don't really know. But anyway, this next one says, as their own words reveal, the purpose of this social manipulation plan was twofold. It aimed to both conceal the pattern of harassment and other misconduct by Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and Wayfair, and retaliate against Miss Lively by battering her image, harming her businesses, and causing her and her family severe emotional harm. Millions of people, including many reporters and influencers, they just put our picture there. We're like, oh.
Literally, you guys, our subreddit is in the New York Times video. I'm like,
scared.
Great.
Okay. It says, who saw these planted stories, social media posts, and other online content had no idea they were unwitting consumers of a crisis PR, astroturfing, and digital retaliation campaign created and funded by Mr. Baldoni and Wayfair to hurt Miss Lively. What Lily said, though, I do think is a fair point. I do think it is notable that a lot of what we were reacting to, although yes, we were looking at the whole picture and Justin versus her, we were very much looking at her own interviews.
That's my only thing, because again, fuck them. Like, fuck the men on set.
Oh,
I believe that they were doing this stuff. Like, that, those are it's such specific stuff, too. Like, it's too weird. But my problem with this aspect of the lawsuit is even how it says right here, millions of people had no idea they were unwitting consumers, basically, of a smear campaign. And it's like, well, was it all technically, like, again, it could have instigated people to look into it more and like pay closer attention to stuff she was doing. But like, you'll notice in here that it's not going to reference any of the stuff that people had valid criticism for. And I just feel like it's a little convenient that they're kind of lumping it all together to be like, everything was the result of the smear campaign and you all believed it. And it's almost to kind of like make people feel like, how could I be so stupid? And it's like, when you consume content in general, you need to use critical thinking and not take everything at face value. But also, I think this is asking us to take this at face value and just be like, nope, everything you read, everything you saw was fake, and it wasn't.
Well, here's the thing, though. though. I do wonder, like I said earlier, how much of it was her actually being rude in those interviews and how much was it her being completely jaded by that movie in general? Is that just who Blake Lively is? Or was it something that she was like, fuck this movie. I hate that I even went through with it. And now I fucking hate this press tour. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I do
but
wonder.
At the same time, whether that is the case or not, and unfortunate if it is, and that did result in her not making the best choices, it was her saying it. No one made her say it.
I know. And nobody knew the context. So all we see is what she said.
Exactly.
And obviously the public is going to have a reaction to it. She's famous. And it was just a really, really messy situation that although I do think some of it can obviously be attributed to Justin Baldoni and all these people, maybe some of it isn't. And I think that nuance is just notable. It doesn't change what Justin did at all.
I think the other stuff very much overshadows her just being like tacky, but like there is a separation I think that needs to be made between some of it. And I think there was valid criticism, and to imply that there wasn't is not honest.
Yeah. So moving a little bit forward, a lot of text messages are included in this filing for this lawsuit, and they are pretty damning. I think they had to have been like subpoenaed because they make them look so bad.
I looked into it a little, and I guess it's not super common. For example, what I was going off when I first saw it, because I was like, how the hell did they get these if this is the original filing? Because for our lawsuit, we haven't even gone into discovery yet, because that is that you wait to do that.
And we never will. We'll just be stuck in this loop till we die.
Because they wait to like make sure it's actually going to trial, and like there's a lot of stuff to get through first usually. But there are certain circumstances where they will get pre-filing subpoenas because they need the subpoenas to be able to further the case, which makes sense because in this situation, you can't just be like, I think he did a smear campaign against me. You'd need proof. And proof.
Okay, Leader Lay was doing her research, period. There is proof that is provided in the lawsuit that allegedly shows that Justin is contributing to this plan to smear Blake Lively. And one of that is a text message between Justin and his publicist.
One thing I do want to point out, and I could totally be wrong, if anyone knows, please chime in the comments. But usually when you see text exchanges that someone would have gotten from like a subpoena, it's usually like transcripts of it from like the wireless company. Rarely do you see
I have literally been racking my brain
of the text messages. This implies that someone leaked the text messages.
Yes, to Blake.
Which is wild.
For some godforsaken reason.
Yeah.
People are speculating that it's the publicist that he hired that is leaking it. I don't know what the reason would be. Maybe she had like a moment of clarity. It was like, oopsie poopsie, we made a mistake. But also...
isn't she being sued as well?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just so curious how, because these are literal screenshots of the publicist's phone.
It was so crazy that like I thought that these were fake, and I just had to go to the actual lawsuit to double check. I'm like, these are like, really? This is on there? This
Even still,
no
people are questioning the validity of them. And it's like, they're not going to put fake, this is so easily provable once, like, these aren't 100%. Fake, they're real. I absolutely believe them. It's just like, how the fuck did they get these ones? Big update, because we found out why the texts look like they do and how they got them. Basically, the texts that we are referring to are all from Jennifer Abel's phone. And Jennifer Abel is the publicist that was representing Justin, who is a veteran publicist, has been in the industry for like 15 years. Well, for some reason, she thought it was a good idea to go into a private Facebook group that's like a PR and marketing Facebook group and defend herself. I'm unsure why a PR expert would think that that was a good idea. But here we are. She posted a comment that says, "Hi, I never thought the day would come when I needed to defend myself with my own peers, but this certainly has been an interesting and devastating, quite frankly, couple of days, so here we are. But here are the facts. No, I was never subpoenaed. I found out my private text messages and emails were included in the complaint after I received it on Friday night, and then the New York Times contacted me 1.5 hours after receipt. They had already reviewed the 80-page document and had questions prepared, and apparently also received, quote, thousands of pages of documents with our correspondence that we never saw. So it was clear that this was a coordinated effort, but nothing we hadn't seen before because I've been working in talent PR for over 15 years now. I had recently left my previous firm, at which I was still with during this campaign, and then in parentheses, with a team who all participated in the campaign and a boss who oversaw, and who had access to my work emails and work phone. So you can deduce from that what you will. What the cherry-picked messages don't include, although not shockingly as it doesn't fit the narrative, is that there was no smear implemented. No negative press was ever facilitated, no social contract plan, although we were prepared for it. It's our job to be ready for any scenario, but we didn't have to implement anything because the internet was doing the work for us. Sure, we talked about it, contemplated if we needed certain things, flagged accounts that we needed to monitor, worked with the social team to help stay on top of the narrative so we could act quickly if needed, and yes, we rejoiced and joked in the fact that fans were recognizing our clients' heart and work without us having to do anything but keep our heads down and focus on positive interviews for our client. As the texts show, we sophomorically reveled and again joked privately to each other about the internet's feedback to the woman whose team was making our lives incredibly difficult over the course of the campaign. I'm human. The long hours, months of preparation on top of my day-to-day scope, it felt good to see that although we were prepared, we didn't have to do anything over the top to protect our client. Incredibly difficult, you say? In what way? Funny you should ask. I was notified at the start of the campaign that the opposing team had been planting horrible stories about my client as a failsafe if my client did not comply with the demands set forth for the campaign, which is why we brought on Crisis, as it's not something that I do. My sole job was to put together interviews, screening opportunities, and speaking opportunities for my client in support of the film, a standard scope of my work. I did my job. Now, what kind of woman would work against another woman who was the victim of all the things being claimed? Thanks for asking. After reviewing the evidence, facts, hard proof that countered every single thing that was being claimed and demanded at the start of production, I made a choice to stand by my client of almost 5 years who had dedicated his life to the equal treatment of others, especially women, who had no incidents of negative treatment towards others, and who had a wonderful community and team at Wayfair who all held the same moral fortitude and lived their lives accordingly. As representatives, we all have to make that choice. So I did that to the best of my ability and felt good about our efforts. Is my client perfect? No. In fact, he says that he's not perfect so constantly to the point that I tell him he needs to be less self-deprecating because it could be taken the wrong way. Are Blake's feelings valid? It's not my position to say or speculate what she was feeling in these moments that she claims, and I would never slam a woman for speaking her truth. But at the end of the day, if it's not the truth and there's evidence that proves otherwise, then as a representative, I have to do what I feel is right. So if you're wondering who her old boss was that had access to the work emails and the work phone, well, that brings us to a whole other little side quest, because apparently there is another lawsuit that is happening now, and it involves someone named Stephanie Jones, aka Jennifer Abel's old boss. So apparently Stephanie Jones, who owns Jones Works PR, is suing Jennifer Abel, her old employee, Melissa Nathan, who is the Crisis PR manager, Justin Baldoni, and Wayfair Studios. So in this complaint, it says that defendants Abel and Nathan secretly conspired for months to publicly and privately attack Jones and Jones Works to breach multiple contracts and induce contractual breaches and to steal clients and business prospects. Behind Jones' back, they secretly coordinated with Baldoni and Wayfair to implement an aggressive media smear campaign against Baldoni's film co-star, and then used the crisis as an opportunity to drive a wedge between Jones and Baldoni and to publicly pin blame for the smear campaign on Jones, when, allegedly, Jones had no knowledge or involvement in it. Obviously, that very much contradicts what Jennifer said in that Facebook comment, which was that Jones was fully aware and in charge of the planned astroturfing campaign against Lively. Unsurprisingly, the Facebook posts that I showed you have since been deleted, and it just keeps getting messier because Brian Friedman, who is Baldoni's lawyer, also had some words to say about the leaked texts. And he said that Jones Works was the PR company contractually responsible to promote and protect Wayfair and Justin. Our investigation has determined that on August 21st, Jones Works hired a lawyer and security guard to take possession of Wayfair's confidential information through confiscation of Jen Abel's phone. We are continuing to investigate the use of that confidential information, but demands are being made to Stephanie Jones and Leslie Sloan. And once we obtain the evidence, anyone actively involved in any possible connection with this abhorrent conduct will be sued into oblivion. Oh, good luck, sir. So in response to that, Lively's team replied and said that the subpoena disclosed and referenced in the complaint was served on Jones Works LLC. The internal documents referred to in the complaint were produced subject to that subpoena. We expect further details regarding the subpoena process will be disclosed during discovery. But back to the lawsuit for a sec. According to the lawsuit, apparently Stephanie discovered Jennifer's plot in August. The plot in question here is that Jennifer and Melissa's goal was to tear down Jones' reputation and to take her clients and enrich themselves upon Abel's planned departure from Jones' PR firm. And this is backed up by a bunch of texts that are also in this lawsuit. And while the lawsuit is mostly around the whole narrative that they were stealing clients, Stephanie has also taken this moment to expose them with their own text messages and show that Jennifer didn't even like Baldoni, which we'll actually see some evidence of later when we read texts from the other lawsuit. But she includes a bunch of texts that show this, and one says, "I can't stand him. He's so pompous. You're not that important, and nobody gives a shit how hard your life is. She also allegedly texted that Baldoni needed to be taken down a notch, and she projected that It Ends With Us might bomb at the box office, and wrote, he needs to be humbled. When this movie flops, he's going to try and blame every person around him for it. And then another crazy one is that apparently in January, she was messaging back and forth with someone talking about, I guess, a kissing scene between Justin and Blake from the movie. She says, it's so cringy. His face. And then the person responds and says, Blake was probably grossed out too. And then she responds and says, yeah, and filed a cease and desist, which this lawsuit is implying that she very much knew that Blake had made on-set complaints about Justin's behavior, and yet for some reason still kept him as a client, even though, one, she knew he was doing stuff that was not appropriate, and two, she clearly hated him. He may fire us because even if we put together an amazing campaign, it's not going to change the fact that he's so unlikable and unrealistic as a leading man. There's no chemistry with him and Blake. You and I both know she will be resistant to promote this movie, and press will be reluctant to do anything with Justin without Blake being a part of it. So there, those are my thoughts. You know, I feel like there's a lot that we don't know about everything going on, but one thing we kind of do know for certain is that Jennifer Abel has fucked herself royally. She also has text messages that show that the two of them were very excited about the plan to screw over Stephanie. But according to the suit, Stephanie discovered this whole plot in August. It was apparently because Jennifer had downloaded confidential company documents, and then Stephanie fired her. After that, Stephanie had found all these text messages when she went through Jennifer's devices after she had gotten fired. Okay, I think that's it for that little side quest, but back to us so we can actually go over the lawsuit that this whole video is supposed to be about.
Anyway, this is a text message from Justin to his publicist, and all you see that the publicist had written before that says, step back, that's excellent, and then he responds with this article of Hailey Bieber. Can you read that headline? I can't even read that.
Hailey Bieber's history of bullying many women, not just Selena Gomez, throughout the years. A thread.
Oh my God. And then he sends that with the text, this is what we would need. And his publicist says, yes, I literally just spoke to Melissa about this on the break, about what we discussed last night for social and digital. Focus on Reddit, TikTok, Instagram. And this next text message is between Justin, Melissa, and Jennifer, his PR people. Justin says, morning, not in love with the document they sent. Not sure I'm feeling the protection I felt on the call. I don't know if they're referring to the provisions that she had kind of presented. I'm not 100% sure.
That's from Justin. So why is he's not feeling the protection?
I guess he jumped at a call and then maybe somebody promised him it was going to go a different way than it went. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell the context because these aren't submitted with a whole lot of context. But then his publicist responds, this is the first time I've personally gone through scenario planning with them. So I think let's let them discuss the thinking behind the document and the actual process and protocol of how they implement these things. That's the most important part of this, is how quickly they can shut things down and place stories in your favor. Be honest on this call and let's give real feedback to each point. And Justin says, yeah, just feels very much like there's not much defense, and also them feeling strong like she's going to do something, just a bit concerning what everyone had originally thought. I think that when the complaints, and we do see it on multiple occasions where basically Blake complained and he freaked out and got his publicist people and everyone to try to diffuse it, and literally tried to get major people in some level on that movie to step down on their HR complaints in regards to Blake. Like literally this was an effort to, from everything I've seen, to cover up Blake's complaints from the beginning. So this does track with that, but it also is kind of confusing.
Well, and it's just interesting that it's like these are all conversations with his publicist and the crisis person, because it's like those are situations that should be HR, but it's like he owns the company. So what was the HR?
Oh, because it was his production company, but wouldn't Sony also be?
Sony was in charge of the distribution, so they wouldn't actually be in charge of like what's happening on set.
It's weird because one of Blake's provisions was Sony has to be present on set at all times during physical
I think that they have, because even they were in that, it said someone from Sony was in that original meeting that they had in January.
Yeah.
I think since they have such investment in the film, because they have bought the rights to distribute it and they are going to be promoting it, like they need to be there throughout the process. So like, obviously Sony, it's Sony, like they're gonna be able to do
they
something.
Can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, but I don't really understand how all the relationships and like how all the hierarchies play out here.
Yeah, I think that that would be clarified more if there's an actual trial and people are talking. You'd see a lot more of
like what was
the
your
dynamic
role on
and
set,
who has to do with
who
what.
was supposed to do this and who didn't. Yeah,
because I'm sure also, just like it's obvious with the provisions, like I think there's a lot of boundary crossing in general when a movie is filmed.
Yeah.
It's not all like super cookie cutter, like this person has this job so they do nothing else. Like I think people just kind of do everything.
Exactly. And like most people, for example, like talking about religion or stuff, like some people might be okay with that, but you should be able to like maybe
also read
not bring
social
that
cues.
to work. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like what was a personal boundary and then what is a professional boundary, where it's like, no, you shouldn't be fucking walking in on her naked. Like, are you kidding?
So then the lawsuit starts showing some of the emails between Jennifer and Melissa, which, dare I say, are absolutely diabolical.
Should we remind everyone that Melissa is the one that owns the Crisis PR firm and that her past clients include people like Logan Paul, the Chainsmokers, Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
so
important one.
Yeah.
We did mention that in our episode about this, and we were like, you know, if you're not guilty, maybe don't sign with that one. I don't know. That seems weird.
That was our biggest thing, where it was like, we were drinking his Kool-Aid and thinking that he was
a little bit
a good guy, but then we did keep coming back to like, then why would he feel the need to do this? Like, that was the missing piece that we were like waiting for something more. And this is something more.
It says, on August 10th, the day after release of the film, Miss Nathan's team reported that they had started to see shift on social, due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative against Miss Lively. And this is an email to Jennifer. It says, hi team, so far extremely limited pickup on Daily Mail or Page 6. We'll continue to keep an eye out and send pieces as needed, but so far it's been steady coverage on pure speculation. We've also started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. Again, we'll continue to send links and screenshots, but wanted to send an update in the meantime. Oh my God, I love this next message so fucking much because it's on the same day that that message was sent. It says, Miss Nathan noted that as part of this shift, the majority of socials are so pro Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them. LOL. That's his PR crisis person that also represented Johnny Depp.
That sent that to his regular publicist who works with him consistently.
And also probably doesn't like him.
Clearly.
Yeah, that industry is interesting. And all I can say is there's a reason I've never had a PR person.
Regardless of what, yes, they can have positive things that they do, but like their goal is to push a narrative and they will do it regardless of whether they. So ours didn't go up till August 21st. We were a little late to the party, but I remember in that episode doing like kind of a breakdown of the timeline. It does coincide with when this alleged smear, I mean, not alleged, it seems like it happened, the smear campaign when it began. But I think what also, again, going back to the separation with like there was some valid criticism, it also coincides to just when people started airing the junket interviews.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? Again, because it's like, did they do that because they saw something that was off-putting?
Well, that's why I was like, all the interviews that she did, it was stuff that she said that people had problems with, and she recorded all of those before the 10th. Not that they had planted stuff for her to say anyway, so I don't know if that time is relevant, but I do think it's convenient for Blake's defense to show that this is when things picked up. And like I said, that I think maybe Justin's team was taking a lot of credit for things that maybe wasn't them. They're like, yeah, look at what a good job we're doing. But it was like, well,
I don't know, because it does seem like they were desperately trying to get people to pick up shit against Blake. Like, it does seem like that was actively proven that on multiple occasions, they were the ones feeding shit to the media.
But one thing, for example, do you remember how people were criticizing that she wasn't talking about domestic violence, and that it was only 2 days after the movie came out that she finally posted a story where she posted links, and it was like no message with it or anything.
Yes, I do remember
that.
So
that was her answer to a lot of the backlash she was getting, was like to finally put something out. And even in that episode, we were like, it feels a little performative that it took you that long to do it. Even this article, like, this isn't until August 16th that article came out. And the article is just about one of her interviews. So yes, could they have shown a spotlight on it? Absolutely. But it wasn't like they were planting story. Like, do you remember the hit pieces? I mean, maybe they weren't. I guess they weren't hit pieces. The ones that were planted on the opposite end towards Justin, that we were seeing that it was like he was the abuser on set, which was like, it seems like actually that was true. There weren't pieces like that against Blake that were being circulated, a lot at least. Like, not that were like the main things.
No, but they have strings of being like, Daily Mail's not picking this up. These people aren't, like, they were, even if they're not the ones who made those videos go viral, they were probably the ones getting those videos, compiling them, and feeding them to the media, trying to get them to recirculate it so that it all just comes back around and bites Blake in the ass. What I think is important to know is that although this is disgusting, because again, they are the ones choosing to circulate this and they want it to get more attention.
Trying to do it. And
that is not uncommon in Hollywood.
No.
That is what PR people do. That is their job.
Oh, and by the way, Melissa Nathan has a sister and her sister's name is Sarah Nathan, and guess what Sarah does? She works for the New York Post and Page Six. So, also, something of note is that apparently Sarah Nathan has been known to write hit pieces, specifically on women.
So it is disgusting, and Justin very much wanted that to happen.
Absolutely.
But I am curious about how much legality, like they're overstepping here, like getting into territory that is defamation. Because again, it is videos that just make her look bad, that they wanted to go viral because their client doesn't like her and wants her to shut up.
And they wouldn't have been able to do that if she hadn't given them the material to do so.
Now, what I will say that is a little bit, in my eyes, teetering into maybe illegal territory is that there are emails like this from Melissa to Jennifer where it says, so, okay, we have the 4 majors standing down on HR complaint. I think we are fine on that bit. And this was on August 15, 2024. So they were actively a part of getting people to stand down to HR in regards to the abuse that Blake Lively experienced on set. That seems pretty cut and dry to me. So moving on to, again, like Lily said, like a separate part of this is the intimate scenes and how that crossed boundaries with Blake and was highly inappropriate and possibly illegal. Blake is saying that Mr. Baldoni ignored well-established industry protocols in filming intimate scenes and exploited the lack of controls on set to behave inappropriately. And it says Wayfarer, which is his production company, failed to adhere to guild rules as well as Miss Lively's contract and standard industry safety protocols with respect to nudity and intimate scenes, which the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists acknowledges place performers in uniquely vulnerable situations. Such safeguards ignored by Wayfarer included providing performers with appropriate notice of nudity and simulated sex and ensuring that consent is given free of pressure or coercion.
So basically that he can't play on the power dynamic. That one, he is in the scene, but then he's also the director and he owns the studio and he owns the film. So going last minute being like, oh, by the way, you don't mind if we do this, right? And it's like putting someone in a really awkward position where they're on set and they're pressured to make that decision. It makes sense why
that would not be allowed.
Exactly.
It says, without these protections in place, Mr. Baldoni improvised physical intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively with no intimacy coordinator involved. Super contrary to what he was saying in interviews.
That's it. And he was like proud of, well, he's like, and
oh my God, it pisses me off
on.
actually now a little bit because looking back to it, I remember he's like, I wanted to just step back.
Yeah.
Like what I wanted to do was just step back and allow the females to really step forward because I wanted this to adhere to like the female gaze. Like I wanted them to be the people.
Intimacy scenes to be through the female gaze. He took a step back so he could just be Ryle, and that he let Blake and the 2 females that he also, like he very much like harped on that it was 2 females that he hired for that.
It feels so icky now.
I know.
The very beginning, long before we ever started filming, I brought on a intimacy coordinator. And again, step 1. And then the second part of that was also a stunt coordinator. Also, as a male, I wanted to make sure that all those scenes had and were shot and designed with a female gaze. So I did whatever I could to take myself out of it. So really relied heavily on our female intimacy coordinator, on our incredible stunt coordinator, who was also a woman for those scenes. And honestly, Blake had a big involvement in how those scenes were orchestrated and designed. Because at the end of the day, like I just wanted to make sure that they did justice and honored the experience of so many people and women that have actually experienced this. So we didn't want to shy away from it, and yet we also had to be really mindful to make it as real as possible.
And especially considering when you read the next line that says, for instance, Mr. Baldoni discreetly bit and sucked on Miss Lively's lower lip during a scene in which he improvised numerous kisses on each take. Now, some people may be like, oh, I mean, it's a kissing scene, so maybe like he just got into it. Those seem like, again, I have to say, if this is your job, and I've always wondered, I'm like, how do actors do that? Like, I would never be able to do that because it's like, what even is this? Like, I feel like every time I've ever made out with someone, I'm like, are we in love? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't do that. But also, it makes sense why it would need to be super choreographed and like to a T what you discuss, because you see it in a lot of movies, like either people will be making out or it's just like a very long pop kiss, or like I think that those are things that the actors discuss and it's what they feel comfortable doing.
Yeah. It's not like they are just like using tongue because they want to. Like if it's not integral to the scene or they haven't agreed upon it, it's not happening.
I think that sets, although they are highly regulated and all of that stuff, it is human beings acting. It is very weird. I cannot even pretend to understand that realm. And I know for a fact, my one of my cousins actually was in a major movie, and a very famous actress asked her if it would be okay if she kissed her, like for that scene. And it was a complete change. It wasn't even on the script. And my cousin was like, yeah, let's do it. And then they did it. And my cousin's literally only 18 years old. I think that there's scenarios on sets, is what I'm saying, that maybe if someone's like, hey, can we do this? And that person's like, yeah, that it wouldn't be seen as bad. But guess what? That probably shouldn't be allowed, because if you're like me and I'm just scared of confrontation, you're just going to say yes to anybody.
Exactly.
You know what
That's
I mean?
the thing. I mean, it comes to like, even for like non-sexual stuff in the workplace, like it varies from environment to environment of like how comfortable people feel, how close people are like outside of work if they're friends. And I think there are rare exceptions maybe where there's more of a kind of fluid situation where they're not as strict about it. But even then, like there's a reason, like it's the guild protocol. Like it is supposed to apply to everything. And you're definitely, especially again, back to that, he is not only in the movie just like improvising as an actor, he's the director. He is in charge of the movie. He owns the rights to the movie. Like there is a power dynamic there.
It says, Mr. Baldoni insisted on shooting the full scene over and over again, well beyond what would have been required on an ordinary set and without advance notice or consent. So this kind of brings me to my point about my cousin who did that, right, with this famous actress. And you would think like, that's kind of inappropriate. Like my cousin's not famous. She's young. And an actress is just like, hey, can we make out? Like it is a little bit weird, but I will say, I think that this lawsuit it's pretty evident that it's a culmination of things. It's not just one thing that happened. I think that she was so fed up, and then it's just like, okay, if you bite my lip one time or something, I doubt she would have been like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? But it's everything. It's why are you doing this over and over and over again? Why are we filming this 20 times?
And then he did it again. And then she voiced concern. Like it says that meeting was the culmination of a lot of concerns being ignored.
Exactly.
And again, like repeated takes of something over and over again, just because, he needs the better shot. He's the director. He's the one calling those shots. So like, she's like, okay, like what the fuck?
Yeah, it's just a very uncomfortable position to be put in. But this is the part that a lot of people have taken. And like, if you see people commenting about the lawsuit, they're probably talking about this. It says, on another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Miss Lively were filming a show dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Miss Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck as he said, "It smells so good." Jesus. None of this was remotely in character or based on any dialogue in the script, and nothing needed to be said because, again, there was no sound. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Miss Lively with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles. When Miss Lively later objected to this behavior, Mr. Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." That is literally what everybody has just been like, ew, what the fuck do you mean?
Oh.
The no sound thing is very relevant though, because they do that a lot in films. There's some scenes that just don't need it. Maybe they're going to dub it in later, or in this case, it was like just a show that they were going to play in a montage. But oh my God, why are you talking to me at all, bitch?
So here's the thing. It was like,
what
you
is
could
happening?
argue in some scenes that maybe like you do want to be talking because it's like they're walking down the street and it's supposed to be like them having that makes sense. That is not a necessary creative decision.
The dragging the lips from the ear.
Much
and
less
down,
saying that.
No.
Like saying something so sad, like, because that's the thing is you could say whatever you want if there's no sound. Like it could literally be like extras, for example. They'll be like mouthing stuff when they're in the background because they're not actually supposed to make noise because it'll be too loud. But like that doesn't make sense. That's not necessary and it's creepy as fuck. And then to respond and be like, I'm not even attracted to you. First of all, yeah, I'm sure. You're a man. That's fucking wild.
It just seems like such a like violent shift from the character he portrays to people it's like, and to the public. It's actually
not
scary.
in any way that I don't believe it. It's just like, it's hard to believe just because it's like, wow, that is,
it's not hard for me to believe. It just is like, oh, you little rat.
It's
like,
more
that's
like
how I feel.
like the figure of speech that it's hard to believe. I believe it. It's just
no,
like,
but you know what? I should have known, and I should have known not to believe someone that's so like cookie cutter male feminist. Like that is a red flag. And I like gaslit myself into thinking it wasn't, but it low-key is.
But I also think it's just because like, it's not like he just sprung onto the scene. Like he's been doing this for years and he has really like his podcast, his books. I get why I was going to say, why the fuck would you like, if you were so the opposite, because he knows that it would work
That's
for
what they do.
But like, oh my God, it's just like,
I know this is a really dramatic, maybe not, but this is a very dramatic comparison. You know when like a murderer goes on like the search to find the victim, like to help people?
Yeah. The one aspect, and not this makes it, again, like I do believe it, absolutely. This is fucking creepy. It's that this can't be the first time that he's done this kind of a thing.
I bet you it's not.
And I know that it's like power dynamics, also just like women not being believed if they come forward, but it's like, how many people has he done this to that have not said anything? And just how is it never come, like nothing's ever come out ever about him? Like, are we gonna start hearing stuff that comes out? Like, I
Maybe.
just like, oh God.
This next part is discussing the wedding night scene, and it says, after Miss Lively signed onto the movie based on the draft of the script, Mr. Baldoni, without Miss Lively's knowledge or consent, personally added graphic content, including a scene in which Miss Lively was to orgasm on camera. When Miss Lively objected to these additions, Mr. Baldoni insisted he had added them because he was making the film through the female gaze. That does check. He does say that a lot. Although he agreed to remove the scenes, he made a last-ditch attempt to keep one in, which the couple orgasmed together on their wedding. Our researcher did put in, because she has read the book, and she actually saw the movie this morning, but she has read the book like a long time ago, and she was like, there's a lot of like orgasming in the book. There is maybe some context there in terms of why he would want to add that. But again, if she wasn't comfortable with it, maybe don't keep trying to add it back in, because that's weird.
Well, yeah, I was
What
like,
are you doing?
also, I feel like it's like,
I hate watching people orgasm.
well,
on
there's a
movies.
difference between like smut and like having it be adapted into a movie.
That's 100% true. Yeah, he might have been trying to be like, I don't know, more authentic to the book, but that's weird. And this next part says, on the day of shooting the scene in which Miss Lively's character gives birth, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath suddenly pressured Miss Lively to simulate full nudity despite no mention of nudity for the scene in the script, her contract, or in previous creative discussions. Mr. Baldoni insisted to Miss Lively that women give birth naked and that his wife had, quote, ripped her clothes off during labor. He claimed it was, quote, not normal for women to remain in their hospital gowns while giving birth. Miss Lively disagreed, but felt forced into a compromise that she would be naked from below the chest down. I mean, from below the chest down.
Well, that makes sense.
Below the chest. Well, that part makes sense for birth. But I don't think my mom, no, I know, I've seen the video. My mom didn't give birth with her titties out. I mean, if you want to, go for it, but I don't care what your wife did.
But that's how many movies have you seen of birth scene? Like, that's not a normal, like,
doesn't seem like industry standard to be naked during birth.
It's not going to be like, no one's going to believe this. It's going to seem so unrealistic if your tits aren't out. Like, what?
And for him to be like, oh, it was my wife, like she ripped her clothes off. Like, it's just also weird. I don't know. Anyway, it continues on and says, when the birth scene was filmed, the set was chaotic, crowded, and utterly lacking in standard industry protections for filming nude scenes, such as choreographing the scene with an intimacy coordinator, having a signed nudity writer, or simply turning off the monitors so the scene was not broadcast to all crew on set and on their personal phones and iPad. Oh, I'd be pissed.
That's fucking insane, because I know that is usually like they do closed sets for scenes like that.
It says Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni also failed to close the set, allowing non-essential crew to pass through while Miss Lively was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Among the non-essential persons present that day was Wayfarer co-chairman Mr. Sarowitz, who flew in for one of his few set visits. Miss Lively was not provided with anything to cover herself with between takes until after she had made multiple requests. Miss Lively became even more alarmed when Mr. Baldoni introduced his best friend to play the role of the OBGYN, when ordinarily a small role of this nature would be filled by a local actor. Miss Lively felt that the selection of Mr. Baldoni's friend for this intimate role, in which the actor's face and hands were in close proximity to her nearly nude genitalia for a birth scene, were invasive and humiliating. That is weird. I will say that's weird.
This is not defending that at all, because it's fucking creepy still. But that isn't a totally out of the norm thing for him specifically. I feel like his wife in particular has made a lot of cameos in movies that he's done.
Well, why didn't he have his wife do that?
Great question.
Would've been nice.
Great question. I'm not saying it's not creepy, but I'm sure that would be even how he would dismiss it as like, oh, well, that was the only role that I could give them, because I don't know. But he does seem to have like friends that he brings in a lot.
This part is super fucking weird. It says, to add insult to injury, Mr. Heath approached Miss Lively and her assistant on set and started playing a video of a fully nude woman with her legs spread apart. Miss Lively thought he was showing her pornography and stopped him. Mr. Heath explained that the video was his wife giving birth. Miss Lively was alarmed and asked Mr. Heath if his wife knew he was sharing the video, to which he replied, she isn't weird about this stuff, as if Miss Lively was weird for not welcoming it. Miss Lively and her assistant excused themselves, stunned that Mr. Heath had showed them a nude video. If someone showed my labor video, I would have to kill them.
Even on a separate level, I've been in experiences both in work settings and in not work settings where people are just like unprovoked being like, look at this. And it's like, no, oh my God. And then the fact that it's his wife, that is No.
This is another part. And remember, I don't know, because a lot of these can technically be considered hearsay. I doubt that they were like under recording, or that we would be able to validate that they were shown those videos, or that this next part happened. But this next part is super fucking weird if it's true. I will just say that right now.
I believe that because it's like, I've had not that exact situation, but it's like, I've had that. Like, I guarantee you a lot of women could say, yes, that checks out, because that is something that happens. And it's like, they do dismiss it as like, you're being weird. And it's like, you're the one being weird. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah, like, why don't just be cool, man? Don't fucking like make a big deal out of this. Oh, this next paragraph, Jesus. It says, Mr. Baldoni added a detailed scene to the film in which the underage version of Miss Lively's character, Lily, loses her virginity. In both the book and the script for the film, there was no sex scene. Instead, the details about this moment were left to the audience's imagination. But Mr. Baldoni added in considerable details, including both dialogue between young Lily and her boyfriend about the loss of her virginity, as well as a simulated sex scene in which Mr. Baldoni filmed and included in his initial cut of the film a close-up of young Lily's face, accompanied by an audible gasp at the moment of penetration. Miss Lively was informed that when this scene was shot, after Mr. Baldoni called cut, he walked over to the actors and said, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but that was hot. And did you two practice this before?
I can absolutely see that 100% happening.
Jesus Christ. I will say that that sounds like young Lily, who she is close to, told her that.
I'm very curious to see this go to trial, because I think that if they can get depositions from these people and testimonies and like bring these people on the stand, they're gonna just, like, Justin's already done. By the way, did you know he's been dropped by his agency?
Oh my God. Wow. I'm not surprised. Not the PR agency, of course.
No, like his actual agency. And WME, I think. Again, his co-host of his podcast, the one woman, she has quit, which is very telling, because the other co-host is Jamie, who is in this lawsuit. And then on top of that, he got like there was some award that he's gotten for like being an ally, basically. And that was rescinded. So like already he's fucked. But like if they get the testimonies from people like the girl who played young Lily, and like it's going to be insane.
And I mean, if this is all true, and there's corroborations, and I mean, I do believe this all to be true, he deserves everything that's coming to him, because to play the part of Mr. Feminism and just give the just biggest bullshit performance of your life, trying to convince everyone that you love women more than anything in this world, fuck off with that. Like, I do believe that if this is all true, then goodbye, sir.
Not only has he painted himself to be like an ally of women, but he has also painted himself to be kind of a reformed fuckboy, acting like he has kind of become aware of all this stuff.
Like he figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no, you figured out how to hide it.
Literally, that is giving like weird sociopathic behavior, that he like learned what he wasn't supposed to do. So he performed that and he became that, but that wasn't him.
I mean, again, if this is true, then he is actually insane.
This next part, I mean, literally, I wish I could skip over some of these, but I can't, because they're all so bad.
I remembered now.
Ooh,
and this actually speaks to what I just said, is that he claims to have like, I used to do this and now I don't anymore because I saw the light.
Go ahead. You want to read this one?
During a car ride with Miss Lively, her assistant and driver, so that's two witnesses that we would have. Mr. Baldoni claimed to Miss Lively that he had been sexually abused by a former girlfriend, which he has since shared publicly. So I guess there's probably something on his podcast about it. At the end of the story, Mr. Baldoni shared that it had caused him to re-examine his past. He then said, "Did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen when they said no? No."
There's not a whole lot of nuance there. Like, did you always ask for consent? Okay, maybe there was a time where people didn't think you had to ask. And maybe you don't have to ask, but you want explicit consent.
Because there's also
obviously
kind
that's
of
ideal.
like there is nonverbal consent still. And like,
of course, yeah.
So could it be he was having some kind of retrospect? I mean, I don't believe this given all the other shit that we've heard already. But the first one, yeah, did I ask for consent? No. It could be taken so it's not meaning something as dark as it sounds. The next one, the only thing that you could argue, which is still not okay, and still like, you could say that it's like they didn't say yes, right? Like they said no, and then he convinced them to say yes, kind of.
Yeah, that to me,
but that's still not okay.
No, that is still non-consensual sex, in my opinion, at the very least, and our word at the most. And honestly, I have had struggles with that in my own mind, because I'm just like, bro, the amount of times, bro, like literally, I'm like, are we in a deposition? Like, why are you like trying so many things, asking me so many fucking questions to try to rigmarole this so that I'll have sex with you? And then it's like, fine, I'll have sex with you, you're annoying, and that's non-consensual sex. Like, I did not want to have sex with you. There was sometimes that I was determined enough in my life to be like, I am not doing this. You know what I mean? And that's when I got kicked out of that guy's house and I called you crying. Otherwise, there's been a lot of times I've just been like, okay, fine. Like, just whatever.
I even mentioned, I think the last episode that like I've done a pity makeout or two in my day. It's that taken to a new level. And I think that maybe he isn't admitting to like he straight up technical definition R-worded someone, but I don't think that it basically he's saying that he pressured someone into it that didn't want to do it. They might have said yes eventually, but they didn't want to.
Yeah. It does not sound good, I will say.
And then it goes on to say, Mr. Baldoni claimed this was an example of how we all have things from which we can learn and grow. Also, he's been married for quite some time. And I assume the only way that, I mean, again, it would make sense for him to be doing it completely out of context and for no reason and just being creepy at this point. But that like some kind of conversation about the movie and like just toxic masculinity. But again, I think he must use like,
I used to have sex with people when they said no. It's like, okay,
well,
I'm
it's
scared.
That he
Bye.
uses his like newfound persona where he's this like reformed guy to then talk about stuff like that.
Justify.
And
yeah.
It's like, well, I don't do it anymore. But it's like, well, do you though? Because you don't seem to.
Literally. Well, I mean, and it's obvious that in all of these scenarios, it's not just Blake that was uncomfortable. It says here, when Miss Lively exited the car, her driver immediately remarked that he did not want Miss Lively to be alone with Mr. Baldoni going forward. So a fellow man heard that and said, ew. Maybe don't. What the fuck? And those are all people that, should this go to trial, can absolutely be called to testify. And I think that they've probably agreed to if they're being listed on this lawsuit. Because as someone who's gone through legal proceedings before, you do make your rounds and ask people, would you be willing to testify if they were a witness? Obviously.
They wouldn't reference these incidents if they couldn't produce something afterwards to back it up.
Okay, our researcher has requested that we cold read this. So Lily, go ahead. I'm scared.
Mr. Baldoni engaged in other behaviors that were shocking and emotionally distressing.
Oh, here we go.
For example,
this is where it comes in.
He claimed he could speak to the dead, and on several occasions told her that he had spoken to her dead father.
Okay.
I do not even know what I would do in that situation.
Dude, and it says it was recent.
Literally, I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure when I was doing all my research, because when they were filming this, basically it was like around a year prior to all of the promo that he had died, I think. Like, I just saw that article.
I would lose my shit. No, fuck you. I don't care if you actually spoke to him. Don't tell me. Bye.
And they were like
what
super close. And it was like, yeah.
Oh, no.
It was off-putting and violative for Mr. Baldoni to claim a personal relationship with a recently deceased father. It would be off-putting to imply a personal relationship with your long deceased father. That is so fucking weird.
Insane.
Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath were also constantly hugging and touching cast and crew. When Miss Lively or others avoided this touching, what does touching mean? Like, just like...
you know what? I don't really know, but I do know some people that are just overly touchy. Yeah. And that, personally, as someone who's very cold to that kind of stuff, that really, really yanks my chain. Like, I do not like that at all. So I would not like if my boss did that.
If it was like coming over, like hand on your shoulder, or like putting him on, yeah.
Ugh, no, bye. Yeah, no, that would make me uncomfortable.
When Ms. Lively or others avoided this touching, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath would retaliate by becoming irritated, cold, and uncollaborative. The result was an unwelcoming and mercurial environment for Ms. Lively, her employees, and others on set.
Again, they're like, just be cool, bro. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, now we get into the comments on Blake's body, which we did touch on in our episode, although I think at that time that was just like speculation on what that could have been. Like, so it was something about her trainer.
Again, most of the stuff we reacted to were her press interviews and his press interviews, but there were a few articles that had made their way out and they were usually negative towards him. But one of them that a lot of people, I think, and this, I will say, this could have been planted by his PR to skew the narrative. And this, I think, was effective in doing that, because the article that came out about the sexual harassment, I think, was the like phrase that was used. But I think it was even like teased originally, like that there was sexual harassment. But then when the article finally came out to like an inside source revealed that this was what it was that he had body shamed her. But then the body shaming that it described was that he had like asked her trainer or something for her weight because he had a back injury and there was a scene that he would be lifting her up. So people read that and they were like, that's not body shaming. Like, come on. So let's see what this says.
Yeah, it turns out it might have been something a little bit different, but it says here, on another day, Miss Lively wore a low-cut dress to facilitate breastfeeding, but had it covered up with a coat. When the jacket briefly popped open at one point to reveal the dress, Mr. Baldoni commented about how much he liked her outfit, which flustered Miss Lively. Later that day, Mr. Baldoni pressured Miss Lively, who was in her pre-approved wardrobe, to remove her coat in front of the crew and multiple background actors in a packed bar. He said he wanted to see her onesie under the coat because it was zipped low to reveal her lace bra. Consistent with past practice, he said, "I think you look sexy," in a tone that made her feel ogled and exposed. With other female cast present, she said, "That's not what I'm going for." He bristled and replied, "I'm sorry, hot." Deeply uncomfortable, Miss Lively said, "Not that either." Mr. Baldoni responded sarcastically, "I guess I missed the HR meeting," and walked away. Another woman on the production spoke to Miss Lively afterward to offer empathy and to share her own similar experiences with Mr. Baldoni, commenting about her in sexual terms. Now, our researcher did point out that in the book, they go to the bar in onesies to get free drinks. So they are supposed to be in the onesies, and asking her to expose the onesie may have been him being like, hey, we need to show that it's a onesie. But the whole hot, sexy thing, weird.
No, yeah, the follow-up to it is not okay. But I will say it is interesting how they phrase it, because it says he wanted to see her, and then in quotes it says onesie under the coat, but then the rest of this is not in quotes. So it just says because it was zipped low to reveal her lace bra. So it kind of is implying that, like, he asked because that's what he wanted to see more. But that might not have necessarily been, he didn't say, I want to see your lace bra. He did, though, say afterwards, allegedly.
I'm sorry, hot. Yeah. It says, as a result of Mr. Baldoni's behavior on May 29, 2023, another cast member lodged a sexual harassment complaint about Mr. Baldoni's gross and unwanted comments towards her and others. So it seems like, although it maybe not like legally, it seems like there are behind the scenes complaints against him from other people, which is what she was mentioning in the beginning of the lawsuit. And that will definitely come out in trial, which is insane.
It's just wild, because it's like, how many complaints were there? Like, fuck. And it's his HR team, but like, does it even exist?
I don't know at this point. It does say, though, getting back into like the body shaming aspect of it, the lawsuit claims, while on one hand, Mr. Baldoni was objectifying Miss Lively as a sex object, on the other hand, he went out of his way to message criticisms of her age and weight, neither of which she could change during filming. On the second day of filming, for example, Mr. Baldoni made the rest of the cast and crew wait for hours while he cried in Miss Lively's dressing room, claiming social media commentators were saying that Miss Lively looked old and unattractive based on paparazzi photos from the set. She tried to reassure him that she should look authentic in the scenes depicted in the photos, which were just after her character had been abused by her fictional husband, rather than hot. Mr. Baldoni, however, appeared focused on Miss Lively's sexual appeal above all else. His lengthy outburst caused a delay in shooting, forcing an emotional scene to be shot haphazardly. I will say there was a lot of talk about her looking older for her role. I'm not saying that is normal what he did. Like, absolutely not. I do think it's real, the criticism he said he saw.
But a lot of this also is another situation, and I'm not defending him. Do not come for me. But it is one hearsay. And then also a lot of it is implied that, like, if he said something that it meant because he wanted her to look sexy. But like, the biggest criticism before even the movie came out that they're referring to was the wardrobe. And it wasn't because she didn't look sexy. It was that she just looked like frumpy. Like, the she was wearing like 8 layers of clothes, and it was like weird. The wardrobe choice was a huge point of contention for the book readers.
I remember that, yeah.
And it wasn't, again, because they wanted her to look sexy. It was just like, what is this kind of situation? Those could be some mixed signals for that specific thing. I don't know why he's crying, though. What?
Yeah, the crying and the fact that I had to be put in the fucking provisions, like, please stop crying in my fucking trailer. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. And I mean, in general, even if it's just like him being honest, I mean, like, fuck, like, this is what everyone's saying. I'm really hurt by that because, like, no, I want this movie to be perfect, or whatever he was thinking. That must have made her feel so fucking awkward. It's like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm an old hag. Like, what do you want me to do? Like,
but
it's
again,
just, you know,
how much of it was that she looks old, or that was it criticizing the wardrobe? Because also remember, she had a big role in the wardrobe.
Oh no, I remember in all the interviews she's like, everyone, it's mine, and I borrowed this, and I remember.
That is a weird one that I'd be curious to learn more about, because I feel like it could be taken, and understandably so, that she would then interpret everything he says to have kind of sexual undertones, even if some instances maybe there wasn't.
Yeah. The lawsuit then goes on to touch further inappropriate situations, like Mr. Heath barging into her trailer where she was getting makeup removed from her body, so she was topless, and then he was staring at her for so long that she was uncomfortable and then called him out for it. And then he just brushed it off as habit of wanting to look at a person while speaking to them. Is the person my titties? What are you talking
Maybe
about?
we wait until she is dressed and then we keep speaking to her.
That would be nice. Like literally isn't standard practice, and it is when you're not attracted to that woman. But like standard practice is if you walk into a room and a woman's boobs are out, you're just like, oh, sorry.
Literally.
You know what I mean? Like you turn around and you leave. It's like my cousin Benji would walk in when I was breastfeeding. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, bro, like literally everyone in my town has seen my tits. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But like, yeah, that is the normal reaction when you're not attracted to a woman.
Well, and also then to reduce it to like, it's like something I do. I have to like, no. That's not a thing.
It's giving boys club, like boys will be boys type of thing. But then this is when we get into the breastfeeding rights, because if you don't know, women are allowed to breastfeed anywhere they want at any time in all states of the United States of America. You're not allowed to be told like leave this place. And then if you work at a location, you are required to be given breastfeeding breaks, because if you don't know, your body is constantly producing milk for your child. And if you don't empty that, you can get an infection known as mastitis, which actually, like if you don't treat it and get on antibiotics and shit, it could get worse and you could literally like get sepsis and die. Like it is an infection in your body.
Well, not to mention,
and it is super painful.
Yeah, I was going to say, not to mention, I've seen in like TV shows, I obviously don't know firsthand, but
it's horrible.
That it's like very painful.
Brutal. Well, the thing is like, even now that I talked about like I'm weaning breastfeeding, I am uncomfortable because my body is like, wait, but we produce this milk. Why isn't it being let out? And it needs to be let out. The feeling is that you will literally like, not right now because it's not like, I don't have as much milk as I used to, but when I was pumping, when it was around my time to pump, Lily, I shit you not, it would be like, and like I would need to just go to a sink and just be like, like just like squeeze my boobs and just like let the milk come out, because if it didn't, I was gonna lose it.
The only thing that I'm like, I've had this many a time when I'm like really drunk specifically, that when you have to pee so bad and that you feel like you are literally going to die. Like I've had it to the point that my bladder felt like it was literally going to explode. Is it that, but like in your boobs?
It's that times a million, because the thing with it causes so much pressure and pain, but it shoots to your armpits, and then you have letdowns during that pain where it literally will just like start coming out. Like you don't have control over it. It's just like, it's brutal. Oh my God, I can't even explain it. It's so brutal. So anyway, the reason why I'm talking about any of this, sorry, this has been an interesting episode, and like the juxtaposition, if you will, of me quitting breastfeeding. Well, this has to do with breastfeeding too. But anyway, it says, throughout filming, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath invaded Miss Lively's privacy by entering her makeup trailer uninvited while she was undressed, including when she was breastfeeding her infant child. Miss Lively often had to work while breastfeeding, which she felt comfortable doing so as long as she was given the time and space to cover herself, which that's your right. Like, honestly, I'm kind of a person that I never, like literally everybody in my family, like I said, has seen my boobs. I'm not super reserved with that, but if you are, you should be given the privacy. Like it is your boobs
and I'd
out at the end of the day.
You are gonna be a little more reserved when you're on set with a bunch of men that have been making creepy and weird comments.
Exactly. And that should have been no problem if she was given the proper breaks to go to her trailer and breastfeed, but apparently she wasn't, because it says she did this frequently, cover up, because she was not given breaks to feed her baby. But Miss Lively did not expect or consent to anyone entering her private spaces while topless, exposed, and vulnerable with her newborn, or during body makeup application or removal. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath both showed a shocking lack of boundaries by invading her personal space when she was undressed and vulnerable.
I mean, honestly, even if she wasn't breastfeeding, you're not, like, they have trailers for a reason. That's like, you're not supposed to.
Literally.
Yeah.
It says Miss Lively was not given proper lactation breaks by Wayfarer during filming, which sometimes stretched into 6 hours without a break. That's insane. That's insane. Your boobs would be falling off, especially a newborn. Like in the newborn stages, you have to pump like every 2 hours.
It even says that it did, the lack of accommodation for her need to express milk caused her to develop painful mastitis.
Yep. There you go. That's literally what happens. You can't empty it. It starts forming clogged ducts. You don't clear those ducts because you don't have the time and you're all over the place. Dude, literally just the thinking of that feeling, it enrages me. The pain, men will never understand. But seriously, if you've never been through it, you don't understand. There is nothing like it in the world. But yeah, that was the breastfeeding part of it. I will say that seems like a fucking issue. I will also say that it's not just actors that get denied those rights. It's everyday people in 9-to-5 jobs that get denied their breastfeeding rights as well. Because although it is your right that you're supposed to get a break every so often, as long as you need to be able to express your milk, that's not always given. You know what I mean? If you're a retail worker or, I mean, a million other situations, like people ignore it all the time. So it's unfair. but that is the reality a lot of women face.
So while there are like protocols and guidelines and stuff in place, apparently a lot of breaching of workplace protocols, I think if you can prove it, that obviously is key, but like it's not something that it's like the cops are going to, like there's not a criminal suit. There can be if it's like something as egregious as like forced labor, wage theft, stuff like that, gross negligence where it's like unsafe working environment where you could like die. That's when they can face criminal charges. Otherwise, it does rely on civil liability, which is only going to be situations like this where the person can actually afford to take it to court and sue them.
I agree. And I think that although it is illegal to deny a woman her breastfeeding rights and all that stuff,
the repercussions aren't enforceable.
It's not something the average person can afford to hold you accountable for.
Yeah.
It continues on to say that there was a COVID outbreak, which we kind of figured from the provisions that had been listed earlier. But it said that Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath failed to implement COVID protocols when there was a COVID outbreak on set. Miss Lively was told by another producer that because Wayfarer did not have insurance coverage for COVID, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath deliberately withheld from Miss Lively that she had been exposed to COVID, and both Miss Lively and her infant child contracted COVID from the outbreak. The way you'd have to fight me physically after that, I got COVID at the same time as my kids and my husband, and literally you wished death upon them. Like, actually, what the fuck?
And you don't have COVID insurance, so then you're not going to tell her? That's just going to end up worse.
A lot of this kind of seems like men that have gotten away with a lot of shit for a long time. That's kind of the way the whole thing seems to operate. It doesn't seem like a one instance, oh, maybe he just let it slip, his judgment, whatever. No, it seems like he's gotten away with this bullshit for forever.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it was an oversight on his part that he could keep getting away with it.
It's not an oversight. It's just like when you get away with things for so long, you just like, fuck it. Like, I can do whatever. And I mean, I think for most of his career, he's been right, which is the sad part. So I think that he just felt so emboldened to do it.
He felt like he could get away with it with other people because they weren't going to fight back, and then she did.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of the meat and potatoes of this. I think that the only thing left is that she felt failed by the HR because the HR was Wayfarer, which is Justin Baldoni's HR, and obviously they didn't really help her out much, but then she also reached out to someone on Sony.
This answers our question from earlier, and it says the Sony representative told Miss Lively that Sony, as the distributor of the film, was not empowered to control Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath's behavior on set, and such concerns must be raised with Wayfarer, the studio responsible for the production. So there's a hierarchy there where it's like they might want to help, but there's not technically anything that they're allowed to like implement.
And then allegedly, while attempting to hug Miss Lively's employee, Mr. Heath said, "I don't even know if we're allowed to do this. It's day one and we have an HR report already." So like to them, it was kind of like, who cares?
Like you guys are so sensitive.
Yeah, literally, that's the whole vibe of everything that I'm getting is just like, you don't get it. It was just a joke. Come on, bro. Like, get away from me, sir. Anyways, skipping forward, there was a list of agreed upon provisions that they provide where basically, you know, that list that we read off in the beginning was her proposed provisions that she presented at that meeting. And then they did agree to a certain amount of them. One of them notably being agreeing to an intimacy coordinator, which is just really rich again, because it's like, first of all, you should have already had that. Number two, it's just rich that he like almost not takes credit for it, but it's just like, of course we had one.
Well, he takes credit for really, like, that was important to him. When they submitted this, like, agreed upon provisions, it says, regarding your outlined requests, we find most of them not only reasonable, but essential for the benefit of all parties involved. Really? Do you? Are you kidding? Because why would you be doing them to begin with?
Wait. Oh my God. Yeah, hold on. Sorry, I almost skipped that. It says, on November 11, 2023, counsel for Wayfarer, so this is lawyers from his production company, indicated that Wayfarer, Sony, and production respectfully acknowledge that your client has concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe environment for all involved is paramount, irrespective of differing viewpoints, whatever. And then it says what Lily just said. We find most of them to not only be reasonable, but also essential.
Well, then why weren't they implemented before? Why did she have to tell you?
Literally. And also, one of them is her saying, you cannot retaliate against me for complaining about the workplace, like the sexual misconduct in the workplace.
Didn't we just talk about something where I said, like, anyone that I've ever known that went to HR about something, it only ended up worse because they tell the person and then they do retaliate or treat them differently.
Yeah, so it seems like a lawyer that knew that their client didn't do anything would maybe propose like, okay, some of these Obviously, like an intimacy coordinator totally makes sense. Some of these, because my client does not abuse any sort of, like workplace rules or whatever the fuck. Like, I feel like a lawyer would have been more on Justin's side than just being like, these are necessary, so let's just do it. Okay, thank you. That's pretty much what we're going to cover in regards to the lawsuit, but it is a lot longer than that. And feel free to read through it. It's behind a $4 paywall on New York Times that I did pay for. You could probably get it for free from Reddit. I will say that. But yeah,
there was another article that linked to the PDF.
Oh, really? Why did I pay $4?
I don't know.
Interesting. I just want to see a full thing because I saw the screenshots, but I was like, I want to see everything.
Actually, I'll link the PDF below. It was like directly from
there you go.
website.
So you can read through it yourself. You don't have to pay anything. Wonderful. Jealous. Someone remind me to cancel that. Rocket Money, hello.
Merry Christmas.
But this part of the lawsuit says something quite interesting. It says, likewise, Mr. Baldoni strategized with his publicist, Miss Abel, about various ways in which they might cover up or explain away his on-set misconduct. On June 24, 2024, for example, Mr. Baldoni proposed an offensive move showing his neurodivergence and some of his attributes that come with it to explain that anything he had been accused of was social awkwardness and impulsive speech.
Also, those were in quotes, too. That was like something he, I guess,
and this is the actual text message.
Oh my God. So this is from Justin to his normal, like regular publicist. Hey guys, one thing I want to do is the Dr. Amen show. Matt, I know you have your feelings about it, but his practice saved my friend Miranda's life a few months ago. With everything going on, I want to have an offensive move.
I kept reading that as offensive too, and I was confused. Okay.
Yeah. So like he wants to be on the offense, not the defense.
Yeah.
Basically a proactive move rather than like reacting to the stuff later.
Yeah.
He wants to already have it ready. I want to have an offensive move showing my neurodivergence and some of the attributes that come with it so I can start talking about it. Most anything that I have been accused of, in quotes, is social awkwardness and impulsive speech, and I think me sitting down with him and just looking at my brain and talking about some of these things will be helpful for me. Consistent with this plan, Mr. Baldoni has recently been making the press rounds discussing his ADHD.
Not him following through with the plan. We have proof of him following through with that is for planning, I guess.
One of the things is a Hollywood Reporter article where it says Justin Baldoni said he had near breakdown while filming It Ends With Us. There was so much pain. Another one, it says he reveals that he was diagnosed with ADHD at 40 after struggling through school. I felt broken.
Dude, this is also calculated, and I know that's how Hollywood is in general, but ew.
So, a few things. ADHD. We can, I think, both agree. That's just mixed with my personality as well. I don't think all people with ADHD are necessarily super blunt and honest, but sometimes I am blunt and honest. And yes, there's impulsive aspects to ADHD, like impulsive spending, for example. Love a good dopamine hit. How you would use that to explain any of the things that we have been reading, like,
is insane.
Like, yeah, I might get a little chatty and talk too much, but I'm
that's what I was gonna say.
Like, right from wrong, what is like a boundary you can cross. That doesn't change.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. As someone who is friends with someone who has ADHD, okay, and I may have a little touch of it here and there, literally, you do have impulsive speech, but your impulsive speech is not offensive.
It's not uncontrollable. It's that, like, if you're in a situation where you feel like I feel comfortable that I can blab to you about stuff.
Exactly.
Or like voice, like a lot of stuff with ADHD, like I do benefit from like talking through things or like discussing things to kind of understand it. That's not what any of this was. Like,
no,
you don't just make sexual comments to people and be like, here's my ADHD. Like, fuck no.
Some other text messages that were just interesting to see Justin's like behind the scenes text that he never thought was going to see the light of day. This was to his publicist and it says, hey, just landed. What is a TikTok strategy? I'd like you guys to start posting me only talking about domestic violence and clips and why this movie is so important. Which if you just see that, you're like, oh, like sweet, but no.
There's a reason, yeah. And it's crazy because that is one of the aspects of the smear campaign, I think. And it's not even the smear, it's the opposite ends. It's like how he contributed to it. We did point out, and that was the biggest thing, that there was such a stark difference between how he promoted the movie and how she did, because he was saying all the right things. But it doesn't change that she could have had a little more tact when talking about some of it, or just like been a little more aware of how she was speaking. And like, I don't know, again, I have some criticisms of how she handled it, but I will say that him only talking about it in really positive, really well-worded ways did make her look worse, because she was not putting that much thought into it.
Yeah. And notice also the dates on all of these text messages were in August. Like this one I'm about to read is from August 9th, and it's from Justin to his publicist, Jennifer, again. It says, also, I need you guys to be really on all the stories I'm tagged in. I think you should let all people DM me so you can see people's reactions to film and I can be reposting everything. These next 36 hours are crucial and we need to be on it. Looking at everything, finding the most emotional and touching content from survivors supporting this film and reposting. Need you to be finding survivors sharing their stories and amplifying them on my page and TikTok. Again, you see this on a standalone thing, you're like, okay, he just wants to amplify survivors. But when you look at it all, it just seems super fucking performative now and icky.
That's the thing. It's like, that's good. Like, you would like to see them doing that, but the motive behind it is now muddied.
Yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much it. We do have some stuff on the marketing of the film and how Sony did, but Lily already mentioned that.
I want to read it because a lot of people are seeing this and referring to it also as like a contract. And like, this was like, she was required to do this. This is not a contract, I will say.
No.
This is like a marketing directive of talking points that they were given before they did the press tour.
Probably like an email, honestly.
Yeah. And it was given to everyone, I'm sure. And it says, focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence. Again, that doesn't say don't talk about it at all or like dismiss it if people bring it up. It just says focus more on the strength, which she seems to have very much taken this and was like, no domestic violence.
I will not talk about it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Which we did actually point out, she did talk about it, but it just was in ways that were like, not really, please stop. But it says empowerment is not about just standing up to adversity, but also having the power to overcome within oneself and grow from it and developing agency to shape the future. I think that stood out to me because she doesn't really talk about that.
No.
Instead, she's just like, it's about love and life and hope. And
well, no, I think specifically what she says is that you're not what happened to you.
It doesn't define
you. Know what I mean?
You're not just
yeah,
a
like
victim.
I think she tried to go that route, but a lot of people are what happened to them. You know what I mean? Yeah, she just definitely missed the mark with how she was trying to market the movie. I will say maybe she saw this and got confuzzled. And was just
That's
like,
the
I don't
thing.
really
it's
know.
Like, I think she maybe took it because it's like they were just saying don't dwell on it like, oh yeah, he beats me. And like don't describe it as like super dark and maybe talk about how she was able to feel empowered to get out of that situation and end the cycle, because that is literally the whole point of the movie. I think a lot of people are reading this and being like, she was told not to say it. And it's like, I don't know if we can really completely write that off.
It does say here in this part, avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. So again, I think she just, you know what I mean?
She was like, okay, don't talk about domestic violence.
Exactly.
Got it. Which I just
and
don't
was
think
like,
that's
grab your florals, let's go girls. And it was like, well, maybe not.
And then in her defense, I brought this up last time, she did not come up with that. That was an actual tagline that like the marketing, she was not the first person to say that. That was being used in promo before she ever said it. It just then played into like, then she was talking about the wardrobe a lot. And there were reasons people were interpreting things ways. And I don't think it was entirely because of the smear campaign. I think it was because she wasn't really thinking through what she was saying.
This part, though, talks a little bit about what they're alleging Mr. Baldoni's like intention was with talking about domestic violence all the time, which again, looking through his text messages, it seems like that's very much something he did out of spite a little bit, or like to make her look like shit. But it says here, in the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media and were not appearing with him in public, which again, that is interesting. Like we did comment on like, oh my God, they did all unfollow him. That's pretty crazy. And it does seem like they all knew and like witnessed what happened and were not about it. So yeah, I don't know. It does go on to say a bunch of things. They even allege that like Justin had bot accounts and like there's a whole rigmarole here where basically the insinuation is the same. We've already covered it, which is just like Justin was behind the downfall and they're just basically pulling out as much as they possibly can to prove that. But we've covered the important bits, in my opinion. Again, the PDF will be linked below. But what we will leave you on as of today when we're filming this is the latest update, is that the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, remember that movie? Blake's co-stars, who she's been friends with for a long time, we even pointed that out
I was
in
gonna say,
our episode.
I feel like I even did a full update because I didn't want to totally just shit on her. And I was like, we're going to give all sides of this, that because people were like, all of her ex co-stars hate her. But this was her first movie ever. And I was like, that is not true, actually. She is still close with these people, to the point that like America Ferrera was FaceTiming her and the other girls when she got nominated for her Oscar. So
Exactly. Yeah.
definitely she has good relationships. She's not just an unequivocal bitch that like everyone hates.
Exactly. Yeah. But they actually put out a statement about this, and it says, as Blake's friends and sisters for over 20 years, we stand with her in solidarity as she fights back against the reported campaign waged to destroy her reputation. Throughout the filming of It Ends With Us, we saw her summon the courage to ask for a safe workplace for herself and colleagues on set. That is notable. She wasn't just asking for herself. On multiple occasions, she says for all females, she literally was asking for everyone. And I think that is notable.
Which also plays into that I said, like, no one spoke up sooner because they didn't feel like they could. And now she was trying to speak up for them as well.
Right. It goes on to say, and we are appalled to read the evidence of a premeditated and vindictive effort that ensued to discredit her voice. Most upsetting is the unabashed exploitation of domestic violence survivors' stories to silence a woman who asked for safety. The hypocrisy is astounding. We are struck by the reality that even if a woman is as strong, celebrated, and resourced as our friend Blake, she can face forceful retaliation for daring to ask for a safe working environment. We are inspired by her sister's courage to stand up for herself and others. For anyone seeking more information or engaging in this important conversation online, please read the full legal complaint in the investigative reporting by Megan Twoley, whatever. Yeah, but it's all of them. America Ferrera, Amber Tamblyn, and Alexis Bledel. Yeah. I fucked up half of those names. My bad.
No, that was all right. Hey girlies, I'm back for my last update, I swear. Then you will not have to listen to me anymore. But I have the biggest update yet, because on Friday night, the Daily Mail revealed their exclusive that Justin Baldoni's explosive fight back against Blake Lively revealed. Baldoni is preparing to file a counter lawsuit along with Jamie Heath and the publicists that are all named in the complaint. Daily Mail says that will be filed by Justin's attorney, Brian Friedman, when the courts reopen after the New Year break. Supposedly, the claims are going to be as follows. Lively's Vision PR team, led by company boss Leslie Sloan, was responsible for smears against Baldoni, not the other way around as is claimed in her legal filing. WhatsApp messages from Baldoni's team have been presented out of context in a way that alters their meaning, that Lively's own publicist planted stories painting Baldoni in a bad light with news organizations, and that Lively's legal move is designed to rebuild her public image after she received bad press during the promotional campaign for the film. An interesting aspect is that the Daily Mail has already been mentioned numerous times in Blake's filing, mostly how it pertains to them contributing to the smear campaign. Deadline points out that they notably left out any kind of statement from Lively's team. Specifically, they left out a statement that apparently was provided to them by Blake's publicist, and they just didn't want to include it for some reason. Deadline did want to include it. It's from Leslie Sloan of Vision PR, who is Blake's publicist, and she says, I was contacted on 8/11 by Sarah Nathan, Melissa Nathan's sister, who works for Page Six and New York Post, forwarding an anonymous tip that Page Six received regarding allegations of HR complaints on the set of It Ends With Us. After that, I was contacted by various press outlets asking about the allegations of HR complaints. When contacted, I responded to press questions by referring them to Wayfair or Sony for information regarding HR complaints. It's clear that Mr. Baldoni and his Wayfair associates are suggesting that I originated press stories about HR complaints on set, which is false. Please read Miss Lively's complaint and the complaint filed by Jonesworks LLC and Stephanie Jones, which provides the details of the campaign against my client. Deadline says that they were told that statement was also provided to the Daily Mail, and it just didn't get included. Meanwhile, Deadline also got a statement from Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, and he didn't confirm nor deny the Daily Mail's self-declared exclusive that a countersuit is coming January 2nd. Still, in typical fashion, Friedman came out swinging when talking to Deadline today. I'm not going to speak to when or how many lawsuits we are filing, but when we file our first lawsuit, it is going to shock everyone who has been manipulated into believing a demonstrably false narrative. It will be supported by real evidence and tell the true story. In 30 years of practicing, I've never seen this level of unethical behavior intentionally fueled through media manipulation. It reminds me of what NBC tried to do to Megyn Kelly and Gabrielle Union, and we all know how that ended up. Stand by. Well, Friedman's been very chatty because he also apparently talked to People on Sunday and said that the countersuit will shed light on those who believe themselves untouchable. This is not a response or countersuit. It's a deliberate pursuit of truth. He also alluded to the New York Times article that had dropped right after the complaint came out, and he says, this lawsuit will uncover and expose the false destructive narrative that was intentionally engineered by a trusted media publication who relied on nefarious sources and neglected a thorough fact-checking process to confirm the validity of these texts. Daily Mail has also put out a piece titled, Blake Lively's lawsuit against Justin Baldoni is the tip of the iceberg as actress plans to take further action. It says that insiders have revealed to Daily Mail that the actor may need to prepare for further legal action from Lively as she seeks justice over the alleged multi-tiered plan to destroy her reputation. A source close to Lively exclusively explained that there are more lawsuits to come, stating that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And then as a quote from this alleged insider, and it says, Blake justly wants everyone who was a part of trying to ruin her reputation to pay the price. She was horrified after reading the brutal text between Baldoni's publicist, Jennifer Abel, and crisis manager, Melissa Nathan. They go on to say that Blake isn't a vindictive person, she's very fair, but right now she's out for justice. She is determined to take everyone down who was involved in the awful plot against her. So, that's where we're at. It feels like this is just getting started, and as Daily Mail said, whether or not what they said in their article was true, it does feel like just the tip of the iceberg, because this is getting messy. Anyway, I think that's it for all of the countersuits and everything, but one last thing I did want to touch on is that the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants Girls are not the only ones who have supported Blake. She has actually gotten quite a bit of support. We've also seen support from her co-star, Brandon Sklenar, who posted the New York Times article on his story and said, "For the love of God, read this," and then tagged Blake with a heart. We also heard from her co-star, Jenny Slate, who gave a statement to Today.com and said, "As Blake Lively's castmate and friend, I voice my support as she takes action against those who are reported to have planned and carried out an attack on her reputation. Blake is a leader, a loyal friend, and a trusted source of emotional support for me and so many people who know and love her. What has been revealed about the attack on Blake is terribly dark, disturbing, and wholly threatening. I commend my friend, I admire her bravery, and I stand by her side." We have not heard from young Lily. She has not posted anything that I'm aware of, but we have heard from Colleen Hoover, who posted an Instagram story linking to the New York Times article, and it says, "Blake Lively, you have been nothing but honest, kind, supportive, and patient since the day we met. Thank you for being exactly the human you are. Never changed, never wilts." And it's a picture of them hugging at like a screening. We've also heard from Paul Feig, the director of A Simple Favor, and also they've been working on A Simple Favor 2, I guess. He put out a statement supporting her, and then also her co-star from A Simple Favor 2 put out a video supporting her.
So it's usually not my thing to make those kind of videos, but I think it's time to stand up for a person that I really love, and this person is Blake Lively. I personally met Blake during A Simple Favor 2. We shot this incredible film together, and I felt something was wrong, and I felt the pain, and then we had the opportunity to talk about me and her. Blake was in pain, and I'm really tired to see those kind of cruel and bad comment about her without knowing the situation. So that's why I want to link right here an article, the New York Times, just to make you understand before commenting. That's all I ask, and that's all I want you to do. All right, Blake, I love you so much. Keep it up, and we're gonna see each other very, very soon. Love you.
Needless to say, people are definitely now on Blake's side. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Justin has not seen too much support. And by too much, I mean, I don't think any, at least from famous people. There's definitely a lot of people supporting him that are just fans. But yeah, no one's really spoken out in his favor. And instead, we just saw that his co-host quit after like 125 episodes, and he got that award rescinded, and his agency dropped him and instead supported Blake. Basically, everyone is supporting Blake. And I mean, if you read through the entire lawsuit, it's kind of hard to imagine that there's going to be something that changes. Like, yeah, maybe a few of the things could have been taken out of context, but like I don't know, it's looking pretty bad for him. But we will see, and we will keep you posted when more comes out. I think that's it. I'm sorry for talking for so long, and thank you if you're still watching or listening, and that's it. Bye.
If I had to end it on any note, it's that I absolutely believe Blake. I think that anybody suggesting that she would just make all of this up because she got bad press is insane. Like, I don't think that that's true at all. I don't think that that could possibly be true, even if you have all the money in the world. Suing, going through this legal battle, it's treacherous and it's not fun no matter how much money you have. So this will consume her life for the presumable future. And it doesn't matter if you're filthy rich. You wouldn't want to go through that. You're going through that because you want to set a precedent and you want someone to stop. And I truly believe with everything that I've seen of this lawsuit that she's not lying. Is she the perfect victim? No, she's not. There is no such thing. And she's done a lot of shit that's worth criticizing. Absolutely. But in this particular instance, I can say we covered this. We saw what we could see publicly. And we said, if there's something going on with Justin, like it'll basically come to light. And here it is. It came to light. And I was never a fan of his other than like what we covered. I didn't even know anything about him, to be honest. I just knew he presented himself as a kumbaya male feminist. But other than that, didn't know anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was hardly like, what is Justin Baldoni doing? I need to see his next part. Not even a little bit. Did I look at him in a positive light because it seemed like he was doing like productive
That's all we had seen. And that's all anyone had seen. Even people that did follow him closely. That's all they had seen is what he presents himself as.
Well, there's still people very vehemently defending him and saying that Blake's lying. And I think
you don't got to tell me that. I know that. Anytime any shit like this comes out, they're like, him? Come on. He could literally be a serial killer. They're like, but look at him. Come on.
Right.
He's so cute.
So it comes back for me that two things can be true. She could have had some questionable decisions made during the promotional period of this movie. But do I think that that is completely overshadowed by the just egregious, disgusting behavior that she experienced on set? Yes, I think that this lawsuit does come down to, is she trying to save her reputation? Absolutely. I mean, wouldn't anyone if you had the means to do
if I was being fucked over in this specific scenario, I would want to do the same thing. I'd be like, not only did you do all this shit to me, but you made me suffer even more because I dared to call you out. So
exactly.
I understand. I don't think that that's weird at all.
But you could also say that she's trying to bring light to those by using this smear campaign, then having it be the opportunity that she can actually bring this stuff to light, because otherwise it would have gone completely unchecked.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that unless a literal miracle comes out on his behalf and he's able to prove that for some godforsaken reason, all of this is a lie and everything, I mean, I think he's done.
At the end of the day, it really doesn't even matter who, like, quote unquote, wins, like who the court rules in favor of here. Because it's very much, yes, it's a civil lawsuit, but it's like Blake doesn't need the money. It's much more putting everything out there for the court of public opinion and making sure they do have all the sides, because before they didn't. And I think just showing that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Do I think that everything was because of Justin in terms of the smear campaign? No, but I do think that the fact that the smear campaign came to be is indicative of how much he was trying to cover up all this stuff. Why would you go to the lengths to do that?
I mean, honestly, I just knew that, like, when this came out, I was like, this has to be the next thing we talk about, because we did cover it so in depth from everything that we had at the time. You know, although things can come out and then change our opinion on things like this, we're going to always cover it to the best of our ability. And so we wanted to spend an entire episode just diving into it as much as we can. Again, there's a lot that we didn't, but this is a lot of it. And I would say the gist of it.
Yeah. And I think, again, our last episode, were we hard on her? Did we definitely veer towards supporting him? Yes. But I do think that a lot of the things we were hard on her for aren't even in this lawsuit, because
I agree.
It wasn't.
Yeah. We were literally watching a ton of like TikToks and things that people had put up, which again, the reason they circulated, questionable at this point.
But also I was watching every interview she did. They had 1,000 views on the People's YouTube channel because people were only taking clips. Again, there was things that it was like, shouldn't have done that. Does that totally feel just not important compared to all of the other stuff she experienced? Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we will leave you guys with that. Thank you for sitting with us as we dissected this to the best of our ability. I hope we didn't butcher it, but I don't think we did. I think it was fine. Okay, well, we love the internet. To cleanse our palate really quick.
Yes, I feel like I had some good ones.
I have an animal one for you.
Oh, yay.
Thoughts?
Well, I don't know, because your animals are kind of weird.
No, it's not that weird, I promise.
Wait, can I just call someone out that said that they would rather watch you talk about Ash Trevino for like forever than watch one more of my animal We Love the Internets? And I was like, tell me you hate animals without telling me you hate animals.
Did see that text message. It was the sound of the pig chewing. They may have misophonia. I have it too.
But so they said it wasn't limited to the pig. They said all of my animal ones.
Yeah, that's a little harsh. I will say the people love your animal
weirdo.
TikToks.
Like, sorry.
Oh my God. Okay, so the caption on screen says, loves horse racing, wait for it. It's a dog watching the TV. He's so ready.
Shut
so cute.
What is happening?
He is a horse.
I've never seen a dog jump like that.
I know. He's either a horse in his mind or he has a gambling addiction. I'm not sure which.
You know when people are working out and they do the high jumps onto like the platforms? That's what it looks like he was trying to do. Oh
so cute. I loved it. You see, that wasn't weird.
Oh, which one do I pick? It's okay, we'll go between two dog ones. They're both like voiced over by humans and they're really funny. One involves a pool and one involves Central Park in the snow.
Okay, the pool.
Good choice.
It's definitely down there. I can see it. Yeah, I can see it too. I'm looking right at it. Yeah, well, I just feel like you can't be 100% sure because you're not looking in the water with me, so I'm just double check for you. Yeah, it's definitely down there. See, if you looked in the water with me, you'd be able to see it. Oh, I see it just fine, so. Look. I'm telling you, man. I'm looking right at it. Yeah, every time you do that, you're actually making it harder for me to see. Because right there, you keep shaking. Right there, dude. You keep shaking the water around it. I don't know, dude. I think I'm just gonna deep dive for it. Maybe seal this. Okay, well, you're a dog. Nobody feels. Go for it. Here we go.
Oh my God. Go and get it for him right now, human. I'm so pissed.
Come on, you're getting all wet. Wow, yeah, that's at least like 3,049 or something. 2 clicks or something down there. Let me think of a better plan, okay? Tell mom and dad I'm a good boy. I'm going in. Wait, hold on.
Oh my God, I can't.
I saw a few sharks. I had to get out of there. Definitely more sharks. Dude, come on. I think if we both go down at the same time, we'll be able to get it. Okay, yeah, no, that sounds like a terrible plan, but I'm not going to do that. Seriously, I had it in my mouth. I was so close. You at no point had that in your mouth. I saw the whole thing. You weren't even close. I had to drop it. There was like 70 sharks. There was literally no sharks. So.
Oh my God.
The voiceover is so on point. I'm like, well done.
The dog on the right is just like, I'm not doing that.
I'm so over your shit.
But I also feel so bad and annoyed that the human that was filming didn't get the fucking ball.
But also,
like,
did
that
you
pissed
notice
me off.
that it wasn't even like on the bottom of the pool? It was on a step. It was like literally less than a foot away.
Okay, but that's a lot for them because they're not used to being under like that.
They're retrievers.
Yeah, but under, like fully going under, like diving for something, even a few feet.
A lot of dogs.
That's hardcore.
I mean, my dog would never.
No,
but
it's very difficult. Anyway, well, if you guys made it to the end of this one, thank you very much. This was, I think, a long one, but I hope you had a wonderful holiday if you celebrate. And as always, hope you have a wonderful weekend and we will see you on Monday. Bye.
Yes.